Morning, everybody. Just a sound check for those joining now. Thank you for joining. Please keep yourselves on mute so that we don't have too much of those background noises. But just a sound check. We will be with you in 3 minutes' time. We're just admitting people into the event. Thank you for joining. We appreciate it. Right. Good morning, everybody. Great seeing everybody this morning. We've been looking forward to having this event today, being hosted by the Department of Transport. Good morning. Good morning. Ladies and gents, please keep yourselves on mute so that we don't have too many of those background noises. We appreciate that. And so you're welcome to use the chat room to type questions for the panelists. You will see that we do not encourage questions and answers after our presentations. Otherwise, it'll take too long. So we have at the end of the event, we will have a Q&A session where you'll be allowed to ask questions. As I'm speaking, we're admitting many more people into the event. So it's great having all the people together. So you will be allowed to ask questions at the end of the session. You'll be allowed to unmute yourself once prompted. But in the meantime, please keep yourselves on mute. Ladies and gents, we want to thank Mr. Ibrahim Sidat for putting together this great program and for Kibi Manana for supporting us and that we have DOT supporting this. It's an annual initiative. DOT is supporting us to give us IPTN integrated public transport network update. And we're talking today about promoting zero emissions in IPTNs, and it's the 3rd of July 2025. So I would like to share my screen, and let's work through the program and giving also recognitions to the necessary people. So there we are, promoting zero emissions in IPTNs, 3rd of July 2025. And you can see it's a great agenda. So Kibi and Nana is going to open us for us, and then we will have Pulani, Manali, Lusanda Madikizela, Mr. Brian Reddy. They will take a comfort break. Then we'll have Mr. Craig Swain, Mr. Andrew Harris, and Justin Kutsia. And at the end, then we will do the panel discussion or Q&A session where Ibrahim Sidat will act as moderator. So great event, and we're looking forward. Ladies and gents, we obviously have great sponsors and associates making this Transport Forum possible. So I would like to give them recognition, but we're going to have, again, a little bit fun here. If you listen carefully to what we are saying, you might be the winner of one of these two Transport Forum branded power banks. We will obtain your delivery address and we will courier it to you. So how it's going to work is we're going to tell you a little bit more about our sponsors and our associates, and then thereafter we're going to ask questions. And the first person in answering the question right in the chat room will be the winner of that prize. It's lots of fun. So listen carefully as we share with you the great news about our associates and our sponsors. So they are our sponsors and associates, and we're going to quickly work through them. So those are the bodies that are formally in a relationship with the Transport Forum professional bodies. Obviously, there are many more, but these are in a formal relationship with the Transport Forum as an industry associate with the Transport Forum. And let's start off there with the South African Association of Freight Forwarders.
To compete on the world stage. To go head to head with the best of the best. Excellence, agility, resilience, the willingness to keep on evolving. It takes courageous leadership to be bold, chart the course, to connect the dots, bringing stakeholders together, to overcome the hurdles we all face, and to deliver best practice. It's about business at the click of a button, delivering at the speed of the internet, connecting people, products, and places, strengthening our supply chains, faster and more cost-effective than ever. Since 1921, we've given voice and vision to the freight forwarding industry, navigating the tides of international trade, evolving ever more sophisticated supply chains, bridging local and global markets to move our economy forward. Welcome to our world. The South African Association of Freight Forwarders, architects of transport for over a century.
Thank you so much, Saul. We've got the Multi-Inland Port Association, joined the Transport Forum a few months ago, playing a big role in third-party access on a rail system. Thank you very much, MIPA. We've got the African Rail Industry Association, working very hard to advocate for the rail industry and third-party access to the country's railway network. Thank you very much, Aria. We've got the South African Express Parcel Associations that represented the body and voice of the express delivery industry in South Africa. We've got SABOA, South African Bus Operators Association, and they represent the bus and the coach industry, and they played a vital role in the social and economic development of our country. Thank you very much, Saboa. Got the Road Freight Association. They say without trucks, South Africa stops. You can see they're concerning green, smart, safe, legal, and freight, all to make a road freight in South Africa viable. Thank you very much, RFA. We've got the Safer Stops Association, uniting minds, sharing vision and resources, uplifting well-being, boosting road safety for South Africa's commercial drivers. We also have the International Women in Transport Association. We've got media houses working with us. Freight News, Railways Africa, Engineering News, focus on transport. Let's have a look at some of them. Freight News. You can see it's news and features for the import and export decision makers. Ladies and gents, you should subscribe to these magazines, otherwise you're missing out big time. They've got very, very excellent content. We've got a Railways Africa magazine. It's the African Continent Specialist Trade and Technical Business-to-Business online publication, covering all aspects of the rail sector. Got focus on transport and logistics. You can see they say they're the oldest and leading transport magazine. Then we've got Engineering News. It's part of Creamer Media, and they shared with us the news, the week's update.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Engineering News and Mining Weekly magazine, published on Friday, 4 July 2025. In this week's cover article, Engineering News and Mining Weekly Senior Deputy Editor Skulk Berger unpacks how artificial intelligence is changing the cybersecurity landscape and outpacing traditional security. AI tools are rapidly changing the cybersecurity landscape, enabling fraud attacks that are more difficult to detect and the exploitation of vulnerabilities and stolen credentials in increasingly sophisticated breaches. The Engineering News features focus on business in KwaZulu-Natal, where a strategic plan targets 31.5 billion rand in investment and 40,500 jobs by 2030. Steel, where on-site gas generation provides direct control. Testing, inspection and certification services, where the Tshwane Youth Program places 52 new building inspectors. And water storage and infrastructure, where smart water use sets the bottled sector apart. The Mining Weekly features focus on pumps, where a hands-on approach is used for dewatering. This week's business leader is Cohen Apana, Global Project Manager for Manufacturing Excellence at Komatsu. And in this week's cartoon, South Africa's Proteas made history in London last month, while back at home, South Africa's once overly compliant lawmakers were also showing signs of hitting their straps, as they peppered one unaccountable higher education minister with well-targeted bounces. We hope you enjoy this week's edition of Creamer Media's Engineering News and Mining Weekly. Be sure to subscribe to the magazine that offers you in-depth news about developments in the real economy by emailing subscriptions@creamermedia.co.za. Happy reading and see you next time.
Thank you, Engineering News. Ladies and gents, moving to our sponsors, we have a platinum sponsor of the Transport Forum. Actually, since inception of the Transport Forum, they've been part of the Transport Forum. That's C-Track. Let's have a look at their great video.
Managing a fleet isn't just about tracking vehicles anymore. It's about intelligence, efficiency, and control. Still, who has the time to actually process all that information and make so many decisions? With multiple moving parts and a data overload, it's easy to miss what's important. C-Track's Crystal platform puts you back in control with smart, AI-powered insights. You're not just keeping up, you're staying ahead of the competition by reacting faster and smarter. Whether you manage a handful of vehicles or thousands, Crystal scales with you. From new entrepreneurial ventures to established enterprises, Crystal grows and adapts with your fleet. Because no two fleets are the same, and different industries have different requirements, you can add additional business features as you need them. Like analytics, custom AI scripts, electronic proof of delivery, routing, scheduling, and cameras, our solution offers a strong core with modular optional plugins and AI that works for you. Because having the power to predict and staying ahead isn't just smart, it's a superpower.
Thank you so much, C-Track. Ladies and gents, we've got JC Auditors, certification, compliance, one solution. Let's have a look at their video.
Welcome to JC Auditors, your trusted partner in road freight certification solutions. At JCA, we offer a single integrated solution for road freight companies, enabling you to achieve all your compliance and certification requirements. Our focus on the South African national standard, RTMS, ensures your fleet meets the high standards in safety, efficiency, and sustainability. Promoting vehicle safety and fostering safe driving behavior are keys to RTMS success. With a national presence of a growing footprint in the SADC regions, JCA is your local and regional expert in road transport compliance. Our certificates are SANAS accredited and IAF aligned, so rest assured that JC Auditors certifications are recognized globally. Our team of professional road transport experts brings unparalleled experience and dedication to every client, ensuring your company is always compliant. Having conducted over 10,000 audits in the last 15 years, JCA's expertise is proven, tried, and trusted across the industry. We proudly serve South Africa's leading road freight companies, along with a host of other forward-thinking and ambitious transporters, driving road transport excellence. Join the many satisfied clients who trust JC Auditors for their road freight certification needs, including RTMS, ISO 9001, and more. Visit us at www.jcauditors.com and drive your business forward with confidence.
Thank you, JC Auditors, gold sponsor of the Transport Forum. Ladies and gents, another gold sponsor is Freeway Fleet Maintenance Software.
Reading buses operate 240 vehicles in and around Reading, Newbury, Slough and now to Heathrow as well. We provide contract operations for other bus operators and other contractors for bus services, but primarily we run commercial bus services in Reading Town. Freeway is central to our engineering operations. We perform all our inspections on Freeway, we clear our defects using Freeway and record driver defects using Freeway in the very near future as well. And we use Freeway to record operator hours, as well as our full maintenance records. It's a key part of what we do in terms of our submission to DVSA for earned recognition. Before we used Freeway to capture our inspection defects, we had pieces of paper, lots of ticks and crosses and handwriting we couldn't always read. Now we're capturing the information straight into Freeway using the tablet computers, and we've got the information clear, legible, and we can assign jobs to people and track how they repair them. We use Freeway out on the shop floor. We have our members of staff who have handheld devices like this one. We have the computerized system in the workshop as well, and it allows us to report back, so it's used everywhere from the shop floor right through to management reporting. As well as our core engineering operations on the shop floor, we use Freeway for our stock control and stores management. That includes ordering parts, setting materials levels for stock and automatically ordering parts, and feeding spend reporting through to our account software as well. Freeway gives me transparency in terms of what's happening on the shop floor. I can see in real time the work people are doing. I can use the information held within Freeway to look for repeat defects and to improve our reliability, look for trends, and also in terms of controlling our spend by passing that information back through to our accounts department.
Thank you, Freeway Fleet Management Software. Ladies and gents, Let's have a look at Bid Air Cargo, fulfills the needs of the express cargo industry for daytime and overnight cargo capacity across a comprehensive Southern and East Africa footprint. Thank you, Bid Air Cargo.
In the world of express freight, there's one name that stands above the rest: Bid Air Cargo. Our airport-to-airport line haul service is the backbone of South Africa's express freight industry. At Bid Air Cargo, we don't just deliver cargo, we go the extra mile to ensure a seamless and efficient experience in South Africa. With our unwavering commitment to excellence and improved technology, we handle your cargo with utmost care and deliver it on time, every time. Our dedication to service excellence is what sets us apart. We live by our core values of service excellence, mutual respect, integrity, and accountability. When you choose Bid Air Cargo, you're choosing a partner that takes pride in going above and beyond for your freight needs. From pharmaceuticals to perishable goods, automotive parts to live animal transportation, we handle a diverse range of commodities. Our attention to detail and precision ensure that your cargo arrives in perfect condition, no matter what it is. Our dedicated teams work tirelessly to guarantee the safety and efficient transport of your cargo. We leave no stone unturned to ensure your freight arrives at its destination intact and on time. With our advanced track and trace system, you can monitor your shipments in real time. Stay informed about the whereabouts of your cargo with just a few clicks. Our goal is to provide you with peace of mind and complete transparency throughout the entire journey. We understand that time is of the essence for our valued customers. That's why we offer a user-friendly online portal that simplifies the documentation process. Obtain quotations and create e-labels with ease, saving you valuable time and effort. Whether you have a small package or a large shipment, Bid Air Cargo handles it all with equal care and precision. Our ISO certification is a testament to our commitment to quality and professionalism. We don't just excel in domestic express freight, we also cater to your international cargo needs. No matter the size of your business, whether you're a small enterprise or a multinational corporation, you can trust us to handle your cargo with the same level of dedication and attention to detail. Connect with us today and discover the difference our innovative technology, seamless tracking, and customer-oriented approach will make to your operation. Bid Air Cargo. Same-day express every day, overnight express every night.
Thank you, Bid Air Cargo, for your gold sponsorship. Now the gold sponsor, Control Fleet, they execute like never before.
At Control Fleet, innovation is at the heart of every decision we make. We execute like never before. Our features include planning, scheduling, driver application, and our value proposition is continuous value and execution for you. We love logistics and transport operations, our clients, and our aim is to provide them with new age technology, innovate their business, and take them to the future.
Thank you, Control Fleet. Ladies and gents, another gold sponsor, Unitrans.
Africa and its people are going places, navigating new ways that move the vibrant continent forward. Unitrans puts them on the road to productivity, growth, and success, helping them get there safe and on time. We move millions of people across Africa, providing secure and innovative transport solutions that connect families and businesses, get learners to schools, students to universities, and employees to their places of work. We partner with independent operators, supporting and empowering them through advanced technology systems that enable their growth. Working with all industry stakeholders, we build the greater transport industry, expanding the essential network needed to move people safely. We are a trusted, innovative transport solution specialist with a purpose. Our belief in the power of doing accelerates economic progress across the continent and moves people towards their most prosperous future.
Thank you, Unitrans. Ladies and gents, Internet of Things integration, very interesting gold sponsor. Thank you, Internet of Things integration. Another gold sponsor in Control, your control center.
Our shipment process allows you to automate tasks that once required manual paperwork, WhatsApp messages, and phone calls. With streamlined electronic workflows and detailed reports, you can reduce administrative time by up to 50%, speed up invoice turnaround by 75%, and boost customer satisfaction with real-time updates. Shipment process types includes contract shipments, ad hoc truck hire, cross-border shipments, and rigging shipments. Our RTMS software allows you to automate data collection effortlessly, guarantee accurate calculations, and instantly generate reports on RTMS compliance. Measure and manage your fleet the in-control way.
Thank you, In Control. Ladies and gents, we have University of Johannesburg, who's been a sponsor of the Transport Forum since inception of the Transport Forum, so we're very proud in having them on board. You can see they've got the Department of Transport and Supply Chain Management. It's also the School of Management with the College of Business Economics in the University of Johannesburg. Thank you very much, University of Johannesburg, for your kind support as gold sponsor. We've got Data Noble. Data Noble is a well-established research organization specializing in both quantitative and qualitative analysis. So they use a variety of cutting-edge tools to deliver customer experience and other sentiment-based research programs. So if you want to know what's going on in your customer base, what's the perception of you, what other products you can deliver them, Data Noble is a company to contact. You can, for all these sponsors and associates, you can get their contact details from the Transport Forum's website. Thank you, Data Noble. Kuba, they're transforming ticketing as part of the ICM Mobility Group, which enables public and private transport to move into the digital era. Thank you very much, Kuba, for your great sponsorship. Standard Bank, with over 160 years of experience, they believe that dreams matter and that together we can make them a reality. Also gold sponsor for many years. Thank you very much, Standard Bank. Global Trade Solution, you can see they have innovative solutions, transforming global supply chain, all about international business, imports and exports, understanding the supply chain. You can see they've got consulting and strategy, software solutions, and specialized services. Thank you, GTS. Zutari, consulting engineers of note, ladies and gents, also gold sponsor for many years. They've got a slogan, Impact Engineered. And yeah, you can definitely talk to them when you need consulting engineering work. Thank you very much, Zutari, for your gold sponsorship. You've got Easy Clear. Easy Clear, they've got software solutions for customs clearing, freight forwarding, and logistics providers covering air, sea, road, and rail. Thank you very much, Easy Clear. We have Ticket Pro, the Smart Tab solution. So this Smart Tab system includes key features like comprehensive route management, flexible passenger payment methods, flexible route and fare product setup, shift and dispatch management, cashier system, inspection tools, and comprehensive management information system reports. Thank you very much, Ticket Pro. Smart chat. So, ladies and gents, those were our valued sponsors, associates, and media houses supporting the Transport Forum. Let's give them a big hand. And it's time for the quiz. So I would like to give you opportunity now to win one of these two power banks. And so what we're going to do is you can get yourself ready in the chat room. And the first person answering the question right, he will be the winner. He or she will be the winner of the prize. So let me just get my side right. Okay, the first question. First question here. There's a professional body, an associate with the Transport Forum, and they represent the bus and the coach industry. Who are they? There we go. That was fast. Let me just see.
Hey, it's a boy.
Yes. So I see Willem Low. It seems, yeah, Willem Low. Congratulations, Willem Low. You were the first one. I'm just making notes here. Congratulations, Willem Low. We will be in contact with you for winning that one. Okay, here comes the next question. It's a gold sponsor, the consulting engineers with the slogan Impact Engineered. Who are they? There you go. Yes, you guys are fast. Elias Kabinde, it seems to be you the first one here. Elias, congratulations. I'm just making a note here. Congratulations to our two winners. We will be in contact with you and we'll have your prizes couriered to you. Ladies and gents, just a quick reminder of our business directory, only 450 rands per annum to have your company or organization listed in our business directory. We outsource this as a BEE initiative to Olga Mashilu's company, Bull & Walmsley Consultant. There's a contact details. You will also, an email afterwards from myself, you will also have a link that you can ask Olga to help you to get listed. It's only 450 rands per annum. And we're getting very good feedback on exposure people getting through this vehicle. So remember, all the presentations presented at this Transport Forum are available for download complimentary from our website. You just need to register so that you can receive or open the presentations. To the left of the screen on that website, you will see there's a user menu. You have to log in there, or you can go to sign up. Shouldn't you have an account yet? It's complimentary. Then you sign up. And once you've signed up, then you can go to log in and go to downloads, events downloads, get our search engine, very simple but powerful search engine. Remember, there are more than 900 presentations presented over the past 18 years at this forum, which you can search. So in the top field, you can type in a title or a description and hit search. It will search all those presentations for you. Or you can go to category, which is the day's date, and you can hit search on that day's date and bring up that day's presentations. So that's great. Thank you very much for all your downloads. We're very popular knowledge base that. So ladies and gents, now it's bringing us back to our event. Promoting zero emissions in IPTNs, 3rd of July 2025. And I'm going to introduce you to Ms. Kibi Manana, the Acting Deputy Director General, Public Transport of National Department of Transport. And she's going to do the introduction for us. So thank you very much, Kibi.
Thank you, Harry. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, you are. Thank you, Kibi.
Okay. And good morning to everyone. And thank you very much to Harry for this session and for arranging it. I know when we said we would be interested to do this annually, when you then reached out to say it's that time, I didn't really realize how quick the year goes by. But thank you. But also from my side, I just want to also thank Ibrahim Sidat, a colleague of mine, and I'm sure most of you know him, for really coordinating this program on our side, and just getting everyone to then be part of this session. Also just to thank the speakers, the presenters, who we approached to participate in this program. And thank all the IPTN cities that are in this platform, who will also be assisting with responding to questions. I'm joking. But also lastly, all the participants or attendees of the Transport Forum. I think what is important, Harry, we can show the presentation. We must just indicate that we have a minister who's committed to making sure that as a sector, we don't stand on the sidelines, that we need to take our position and be visible at the table. She said this one time when we were engaging with her. So I think as a branch and also as a program, we have no choice but to make sure that we move forward with that directive. So can we go to the next slide? So we're just going to share with you work that we're currently doing within the integrated public transport space. Can we go to the next slide? Okay. I mean, I think in terms of background, as a sector, we account for close to 13% of emissions, with 97% coming from the road-based transport space. And as a sector, we are also, and even as a country, we have made a commitment to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. And my colleague from the Department of Transport, Ms. Bulani Manale, will share more around this and what we're doing in the department. She is also instrumental in making sure that we have a strong policy foundation that then seeks to support this transition. Also, we're noting that globally, everyone is moving away from ICE to zero emission vehicles. And so in South Africa, we're still way behind. But I think we're recognizing that we need to start somewhere and accelerate our move towards zero emission vehicles. Okay, can we go to the next slide? Next one. Within the IPTN program, just to update everyone, we currently have 9 municipalities operating, carrying about 44 million passengers annually combined. And we operate these services using a mix of different types of buses. We have 18-meter buses, 12-meter buses, 9-meter buses, 7-meter, as well as 6-meter diesel buses, and compressed natural gas. In some cities like Tshwane, they use compressed natural gas. And then we, IPTNs as a program promotes public transport. So we're trying to do our bit in making sure that we shift commuters from private cars into public transport. And this is also in line with commitments and targets that we have in the green transport strategy, and also what Bulani will be sharing with us today in the transportation just in transition plan. And several cities within the program are initiating or have initiated a process towards decarbonizing their IPTNs or their public transport fleet. Cape Town will be sharing with us today, and they've already released a tender to roll out electric vehicles for my city. And other cities include eThekwini, Johannesburg, and Tshwane. We went to South America with Cape Town, eThekwini, and Johannesburg to go and learn about, how the two countries, particularly the Santiago cities, and Sao Paulo are transitioning or have what they're doing to transition to zero emission. And we thank C40 as well for that opportunity of that study tour. They are also part of the presentation today, of the session today. Thank you. Can we continue? We've made a number of changes. Can we go to the next slide? And I think I'll highlight some of the initiatives that we've introduced as the IPTN program. We have made some changes to the grant framework within DORA. And one of the updated conditions in the framework is that IPTN vehicle fleet procurement must be zero emission technology unless an exemption is granted by the Department of Transport. And previously, within the grant framework, the previous condition was just that we're encouraging cities to consider environmental strategies and emission standards. And then we thought maybe we need to be more specific and see how then we're able to send a very clear signal to municipalities that we need to move to zero emission technologies. And going forward, we will be requiring them to comply with zero emission standards. And cities will need to then plan for this transition, looking at funding considerations and long-term fleet renewal strategies. And this will also then affect the entire value chain, including depots, charging infrastructure, as well as a grid capacity. Next point. We also produce a number of templates, especially for the development of budget proposals that cities need to submit to the department. And within those templates, there's what we call an Appendix 3 template. And basically, there have been changes as well that have been brought into that template to enable greater visibility of transition plans, and also cities assessing the carbon intensity of their fleet. And so there have also been things that have been added around the provision of battery replacement and charging equipment. They need to also provide fleet requirement statistics, basically updating, us to know what the profile is of their vehicles, whether they are ICE or zero emission vehicles. And also we've also introduced a performance metric on the percentage of their vehicles with alternative energy propulsion. And basically this means that our future fleet procurement should be guided by clear evidence-based assessments. Can we go to the next slide? We also conducted a session where we required cities to do a pre-feasibility study. And this program was launched last year. And we even had an introductory workshop in November 2024, where cities were briefed around this pre-feasibility study, and a number of templates and guidance and assessment tools were given to them for them to then start doing this pre-feasibility study. And this culminated into a workshop where then municipalities presented their findings on the 14th of February this year. And really going forward, more work still is needed from the cities to confirm their state of readiness. We've also, can we go to the next part? We've also introduced one other critical initiative that we've introduced is a transversal contract, a tender that we're working with the National Treasury on, and the specifications were released, and we're hoping that the contract will be finalized sometime this year in August 2025. And basically, out of the pre-feasibility study, we're able to then determine the fleet needs over, the next 5 years from municipalities. And what then was determined was there will be a need for about 606 buses from municipalities, and therefore we're looking at how then we capitalize on the benefits of bulk procurement for these 606 buses going forward. Way forward, can we move to the next slide? I think, as we said, we would need a policy that basically then sets very clear targets that then we need to be complying with as the IPTN program. And I would imagine that even though national targets are set, municipalities would then have to cascade them to their own targets within their areas. And one thing that we also picked up from the study tour was that we need to be engaging with the Department of Energy and Electrification and the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition to basically make sure that we are aligned. As you will see from what Bulani will be sharing, there are targets that have been set for us, and we need to make sure that they come to the table to make this transition possible and smooth. And we will continue to be changing grant frameworks, but for now, as we continue to implement, if there are specific targets that are coming out and milestones that have to be met, the grant framework will then be reviewed and changed. But we are mindful that we need to manage this process and not put onerous processes and conditions on cities. And I think we will do this quite close with cities to make sure that whatever we're coming up with is reasonable and realistic. We will continue to make sure that there is knowledge sharing and facilitate workshops to capacitate municipalities. I think for me, one of the things that was coming out of the South America trip was how we need to be collaborating with C40 and formalizing that collaboration and seeing how they can assist us, especially with knowledge sharing, just based on the trip that we're on, and also other cities that we could also be tapping into, who've already gone far ahead, and also just the transversal procurement to enable cost-effective scaling of electric bus deployment. And one of the things that we would have to look at as part of the transversal procurement is to see how we can facilitate bringing, fewer vehicles for testing in cities before, the bigger, or rather the permit, or rather the additional fleet coming on board. And one of the discussions that we've also had with the cities that were in eThekwini and cities that were in South America with C40 was looking at bringing some vehicles and testing for, minimum of a year or 2 years, just to fully understand with everything else that is required, the charging infrastructure, the provision of energy, so that then when those bigger numbers of vehicles come through, cities have tested and have had the experience. And I know that in South Africa, we have a terrible a reputation of basically staying at pilot and testing stage and not moving forward. But I think we will have to find ways to make sure that we don't end just at testing or piloting, but that we move the needle, and also we're looking at incentives and making sure that we incentivize funding by engaging with departments like environment as well as National Treasury to enable this transition. I think also, just thinking aloud now, one issue which is important is capacity. Whether it be it at municipal level and even ourselves at a national level, in driving a program such as this. It's one area that we need to look at. I mean, I've had a discussion with the team where we are exploring that maybe we need to bring in a dedicated project manager at a national level who then will make sure that they move, like they are fully dedicated to moving this program forward. So it's one area that we will need to then look at as a way forward. But thank you very much, everyone. I'll end my presentation here. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Kibi, for a great introduction and for hosting us today. We really appreciate it. We know that you're extremely busy with the minister, so we really appreciate you spending some time with us and not only supporting, but also incentivizing green initiatives, which our countries in so need of, the world's in need of. Thank you very much. And we're looking forward to the other presentations, and then have a blessed day further. Thank you very much, Kibi.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone attending today. And I wish you all a good discussions and engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Kibi. All right, ladies and gents, let's just get our program up here. So then, as Kibi announced, the next presenter then will be Ms. Pulani Manale. She's the Director in Environmental Coordination of National Department of Transport, and she's going to give us an update on Green Transport Strategy and Just Transition Plan. Thank you very much, Pulani.
Okay, this is me. Thank you, Harry. Good morning, everyone. As indicated, my name is Pulani Manale. I'm the Director Environmental Coordination from the Department of Transport. I'm just going to give an update on the policy direction that we are taking in terms of green transport and also the transition into low carbon transport economy and climate resilience. So this is
Pulani,
the presentation.
Can you just click on that screen, that presentation mode screen again?
Yes.
That one, yes. There we go. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. My presentation will have the background, context, methodology, unpacking the plan and the policy measures, the enablers, and also the prioritization of the action so that we can ensure that the transition it started at an early stage. So we're looking at the lower hanging fruits. In terms of the background and context, we all know that South Africa, we are facing key challenges that those include the spatial exclusion. We have unreliable public transport, our freight is declining and port performance, and we are also vulnerable within the petrochemical industries. So these challenges, they constrain our inclusive growth and socioeconomic development. And that is also within the, it's also led by the worsening of emissions. So those challenges, we have spatial exclusion, it continues to worsen. We have public transport, I've indicated, decline in passenger freight, fossil fuel, and climate risk and vulnerability. And as we continue with our background, as South Africa, we have several national priorities and commitments that relate to climate protection, economic and social development. And if you can look at the slides, starting from my left-hand side and then going clockwise, as the sector, as Kibi has mentioned, that as a transport sector, we are contributing about 12.7% of South Africa's greenhouse gas emissions. And out of that 12.7%, 97% comes from the road sector. That tells that the road sector contributes a significant amount of emissions within the transport sector. And looking at following that again, in terms of economic importance, we have the automotive industry that contributes about 4.9% to the GDP, and this is the 2023 figure. And our automotive industry is a significant employer. We all know that we have several automotive industries within the country, so that provides as a significant employer. And we have another challenge that we are looking at in terms of the global outlook. We see that most of the automotive or countries are moving away from our ICE and they're moving towards the green technologies, being the EVs, the green hydrogen, and any other alternative fuel that is green. We can look at the EU and the UK phasing out the sales of ICE vehicles by 2035 and 2030 respectively. So that already have a negative impact to our automotive industry, knowing that as a country we are exporting to these countries, and if we are not moving away from the production of ICE or to adopt to they are shifting away, then it will threaten our market towards that industries. And moving again, in terms of South Africa, we are committed to addressing climate change. We have several policies that guide us. We have our low emission development strategies. We have our national determined contribution goals that is currently being updated to have the 2035 targets. And we have our green transport strategy that is also being updated. This was because as from the new administration, our new ministers indicated that we need to update our green transport strategy so that it can align to the current targets of net zero. And if I can also indicate the way, I think Askibe has indicated that Minister is passionate in terms of issues of green transport, of greening. And I've just read her budget speech now. Our green transport strategy review, it's in her budget speech. So that shows already that we have work to do to ensure that we meet those targets in terms of what she's advocating. And we also have the Climate Change Act that was promulgated, and within the Climate Change Act, our minister will be allocated what we call sector emission targets. These are the sets, and the sets are allocated to the sectors that contributes or have a significant contribution towards the climate change, or in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. So our sector, transport, is one of those sectors. Therefore, Minister will be expected to report annually to the cabinet in terms of interventions, or what is she doing to ensure that the sector it's responding, or it's reducing its impact to the climate change. And we also have our Just Energy Transition implementation plan, where it indicates the new energy vehicles, and there's a work stream on the jet NEV that we need to advocate, and as the Department of Transport and the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition will have to lead in that work stream within the jet IP. And as our vision, South Africa, we are committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2050. And however, as much as we envision to that, we need to ensure that it's achieved. Also looking at our triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. That means we need to ensure that this move is done in a just manner. And that is the reason that we are coming up with a just transition for the sector, so that then whatever that we do in the department or in the sector, it's done in a just transition manner. And if you can see the slide, I'd like to credit the writers, Len Visser and Van der Schuren with the slides. It shows the current life where we see that there's a lot of pollution, there's a lot of congestion in terms of cars or in terms of vehicles. But in the near future or our good life future, we want to see a good life where there's less congestion. We have public transport. You can see now we have a bus. There are no longer cars, and then even the air quality. We can see that the sky. It's clearer than the current life picture where we see there's a lot of pollution due to congestion. In terms of the specific objectives for the Just Transition Plan, we have 4 specific objectives that has been identified during the development of the Transport Just Transition Plan. The first strategic objective is to determine the sector-specific climate and development actions, however, ensuring that the sector transition to low carbon emission pathways and services. And the second objective is to review the green transport strategy mitigation target so that it's aligned to the South Africa's NDC target. And we need to identify and determine the most technically feasible and cost-effective pathways for the sector so that we transition towards a climate resilient and low carbon economy. And lastly, we want to develop guidelines that will facilitate the transition to climate resilient transport system. And in terms of the slides, the scope of the plan, we are looking at the land transport at this stage. Okay, if I can give a background, before before we have a new minister, we had planned that we were going to have 2 phases for the development of the Just Transition, which phase 1 is this one that I'm presenting, that will look at land transport. As I've indicated in my previous slide, that 97% came from the road. So we wanted to focus on the subsector that contributes more, and then we'll go to the other to the other sectors. So then the second phase was going to be the maritime and the aviation. Seeing that they are shaded there, they were going to go in the next phase. However, following the instruction for the new minister from the minister that we need to review our green transport strategy, then we thought then it would be best that then the second phase should be incorporated into the review of the green transport strategy rather than duplicating efforts or doing the same thing that we would have done into the green transport strategy. And the related and within the land transport, then we're gonna look at the non-motorized transport, NMT. We're gonna look at rail, we're gonna look at road, and that both will look at people and freight, and then we're gonna look at our metros, our urban and our rural areas. And we have related sectors that contributes towards the plan. And we have the economic development, we have climate and environment, energy and electricity, and land use and housing. And within this, the key policies that mandates us as a department to develop the Transport Just Transition Plan is, you can look at the right-hand side. It tells us that we have the green transport strategy that mandates us to develop the green transport, the Transport Just Transition Plan. We have our just energy transition. We have our just urban transition, and then we have our EV white paper and automotive master plan. We have our Climate Change Act, we have our LEDs, we have our National Transport Policy White Paper, and the Just Transition Framework. So these are the policies that mandates us, and we need to ensure that we align to these policies without duplicating any efforts. And in terms of the methodology that was carried in the development of the Just Transition Plan, the process followed was we did a research and analysis, desktop analysis policy. We did our literature review so that we can see what we have at this stage, the gap analysis. And then we engaged key stakeholders bilaterally. We did group engagements, and we also did public engagements with them. And then from that, we developed the socioeconomic impact assessment to that, so that we can be able to see how then will the sector will the policy affect affect our people socially and also our economy. And then we did the alignment with other policies and processes, and then the drafting started from those inputs, and then from that we did continuous consultations, and we had our regional roadshows that took place sometime in April, and then we had our updated plan that is going to go for approval. And the stakeholders that were included when developing that plan, we had our government departments, such as DFFE, such as DTIC, National Treasury, etc. We have our transport sector stakeholders, we have our automotive industry, we have fuel industry, labor, commuter representatives, our academia, like CSIR, and other interested stakeholders. And these slides will then unpack our plan. In terms of the goal, we are looking at transitioning to low carbon economy and then towards the net zero. And then in terms of our outcomes, we are looking at social justice and inclusion. We are looking at economic growth and employment. We are also looking at low carbon sustainable development. And then the outputs, we will be looking at spatial transformation, our sustainable transport, our ZEF transition, and climate resilient transport. And in terms of the activities that will fit within our outputs or levers, it will be delivering the mixed use densification around the public transport. We want to reform development and transport practice and also reshape the streets so that then we can allow for the NMT. And for sustainable transport, we want to revitalize the public transport because we see that moving from passenger vehicles to public transport will have a significant contribution towards us reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, because as our cars the congestion and also the congestion, so the move to public transport, it's one also of the interventions that have also been identified within the green transport strategy as the modal shift and from passenger to public transport, and also from road to rail. And we want to improve our conditions for walking and cycling, also manage travel demand and reduce car use, and also shift freight to rail. And then in terms of ZEF transition, we want to accelerate the ZEF uptake and fleet transition. We want to enable shifting to ZEF production and expand public charging network, and also pursue green hydrogen. As the department, we are advocating for all green technologies. We are not skewed into one technology. We want to have a competition, or we want to have all technologies where the users are able to pick for themselves the technology that is relevant for them. Hence, we are also looking at green hydrogen, and I also include. I think we also have some biofuels indicated somewhere on the plan. And in terms of climate resilient transport, we're going to incorporate natural and green infrastructure solutions, integrating climate change considerations into the sector in terms of design standards. And as much as we all know that plans are good, but there are also bottlenecks and challenges in terms of the development or in terms of the implementation of plans. And in this plan, the bottlenecks and challenges that we did identify in terms of sustainable transport, we've seen the worsening spatial disparities. We've seen that there's a lot of car-oriented planning and delivery, then the deterioration of our public transport and our poor performance of freight rail, and also the shift towards unsustainable transport. And the enabling environment, we are looking at governance challenges, constrained institutional capacity. We have our fiscal constraints and limited funding that we are also facing. And then the cross-sectoral dependencies like DOT, DTIC, etc., in terms of processes and also mandates. And in terms of the socioeconomic and environment, we can see that our economy currently stagnant, and declining living standards. We are also looking at the world's most, and we are a world's most unequal society. We have very high levels of unemployment and widespread poverty. I think the latest stats of unemployment were indicated in last week, and they are shocking. And we have limited social security net, and then also our increase in GHG emissions are a part of our bottlenecks and challenges that we are facing. And in terms of the actions that we have identified, this slide is actually the just transition. So if you can forget everything that I have said, just come back to the slides and then you will remember everything in terms of the just transition plan. So we have our strategic priorities that I've indicated. Those are the 4. We have our spatial transformation, our sustainable transport, our ZEF, and our transport resilience. And in terms of the program areas, we have our sustainable cities, streets, and places, and the action plans leading to with the spatial transformation and the action areas. We are looking at public transport-oriented development, transport and development practice reform, and sustainable streets. And in terms of sustainable transport, we are looking at personal and freight transport, and the action areas. We are looking at sustainable transport planning, our public transport, walking, and freight, road to freight rail, and then road and urban freight. And in terms of our ZEFs, our program areas that we are focusing on, it's the value chains transition, the fleet ZEF transition, and non-fleet ZEF uptake and energy transition. And our action areas that are linked to that, it's automotive value chain. We are looking at employment and skills. We are looking at public transport again. You can see public transport is coming time and again. We are looking at our learner transport, our government fleets, our corporate fleets. We are looking at non-fleet ZEF uptake and energy transition. And in terms of our transport resilience, which is more of the adaptation part, we are looking at the system resilience, our infrastructure resilience, and our user resilience as our program areas. And in actioning that, we'll be looking at access and affordability, safety and security. We'll be looking at climate robust designs and construction. We'll be looking at knowledge and information system and climate responsive institutional capacity. And I think then this slide, it's gonna go into detail in terms of strategic objective 1, which is spatial transformation. That's where we are addressing the Harry, if I may ask, how much time do I have? Because I can skip the slides and then go to the closing slides, because the slides, they almost repeat the slides that I've just done now.
Yeah, Pulani, we're actually running out of time, but let's give you another 2 minutes or so.
Okay, then let me move straight to the last 2 slides to that. Okay, these are the transition measures. In terms, we have the economic risk and the opportunities in terms of transition. The risk that we have identified, it will be the decline in IC. However, the opportunities, it will be the growth in ZEFs. And then the petrochemical sector will have the reduced demand for petrol. But however, in terms of opportunities, the petrol station may transform into BEV charging or hydrogen refueling. And public transport move to high capacity services, and then you have sustainable transport, delivery of spatial transformation. And the freight value chain may displace trucking jobs, however, shifting freight from road to rail, enabling cleaner, more efficient logistics. And on this one, I think I can jump this one. And then in terms of the enablers, we are looking at institutional arrangements and strengthening. We are looking at investment and financing. We are looking at monitoring, evaluation, and adaptive management. And in terms of institutional arrangements and strengthening, we want a well-defined institutional framework for the successful implementation of the plan. And then we need to ensure that the transition is successful and just. through the significant investment from both public and private sectors. It's essential. And then to ensure that there's the implementation, we then need to monitor the implementation and evaluate the impact of the actions. And this is the institutional arrangements. It takes them into details in terms of the national, provincial, and local, and the stakeholders that might be needed to ensure coordination. And then this is in terms of investment, in terms of public sector, private sector, and international finances that shows that this is where the funding should come from for the implementation of the plan. And then this is the monitoring and evaluation system. We are looking at having a monitoring framework and a system that will ensure that will track the implementation of initiatives. And then this slide shows the prioritization of actions. We have identified 10 priorities. Firstly, if I can go quickly with them, and then on the plan, it will identify it's aligned to which section under the plan. We are looking at reviewing the approach towards planning funding. We are looking at accelerating the restoration and expansion of metro rail services. We are looking at revising the national public transport strategy, which is one of the priorities, the important ones, and improving freight rail performance, accelerating ZEF uptake across national, provincial, and municipal fleets, embed climate risk assessment and resilience standards. And we also want to establish the technical support unit within the department to coordinate and drive the plan. And that one, I also had Askibi indicating that they might need the project manager that might be able to look at specific implementation of this kind of area. So that shows already that the thinking is aligned to the importance of this nature. And also want to engage the presidency and national treasury on a funding strategy that prioritizes budgets and also design the monitoring and evaluation system. Then that was my last slides. Thank you very much, Harry, and thank you very much to everyone who has listened and given me the opportunity to present. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Polani. That was a great and comprehensive presentation. Really appreciate this. You really had a look at the key challenges, and then clearly you're driving our commitment, for zero emissions. And thank you for the great work you are doing. I'm quite sure people are looking forward to engage with you in the Q&A session a little bit later. Thank you so much, Polani. Really appreciate it. Right, ladies and gents, then we have a look at our next presenters, two presenters going to talk to us. It's Mr. Sander Madikizela and Mr. Brian Reddy. Lusanda is the Director of Implementation, and Brian is the Senior Program Manager for Zero Emission Buses Africa from C40 Cities. And they can talk to us about update on the work by the C40 Cities organization to support zero emissions public transport in South Africa, Africa, and globally. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to present and speak. Just, Harry, I don't know if you can check for me. Do you know if Sanda has joined? I didn't see her.
Let me quickly have a look for you. We can hear you and your slides are visible, so at least that I can share. Let me just have a look. No, I don't see Lusanda on the list, so it seems to me we have you today.
That's fine. I'll do her bit overview. All right. Yeah. So I guess what Sanda would have done is just provided a bit of an overview of what C40 Cities is. It's an organization. So we're a global NPO. We're an organization of mayors of 100 cities globally. We work through the mayors, and we help support the cities in our network to implement the climate change action plans. Linked to those climate change action plans, we also have a set of programs that we develop in cities covering energy, waste, water, transport, etc. So I sit on the global transport team at C40 Cities, and I focus specifically on public transport, so electric buses, and we're also looking at paratransit now. My focus is the African continent. The next slide. So you can see this map here. We've got 14 cities in Africa within the C40 cities network. Currently, the majority of our e-bus work is in South Africa. So down there on the map, we've got five C40 cities. In South Africa, Cape Town, eThekwini Municipality, Johannesburg, Tshwane, and Ekurhuleni. We've got three projects that fall under the Zero Emission Bus program currently in South Africa. It's Zebra, the Tumi eBus mission, and our China Africa partnership program. Just some highlights of the activities that we've done this year. We organized an eBus study tour for Cape Town, Johannesburg, eThekwini, and Indot to go to see Santiago in Chile, Sao Paulo in Brazil. And that was a peer-to-peer knowledge exchange between C40 cities in South Africa and C40 cities in Latin America. The Zebra program is our zero emission bus rapid deployment accelerator. It was initially set up for Latin America and it's been operating for a number of years. It's been quite successful in helping cities in the region to transition their city bus fleets to electric. And so in 2023, we expanded Zebra into South Africa and India. As part of Zebra, we're also working on a West African e-bus market study, which will be published later this year. Last year, we published the South African e-bus study, which I'll touch on later. We're also providing national government policy support to NDOT and DTIC. Something that's coming up soon will be a potential bilateral exchange between DTIC and India's Department of Heavy Industry on EV manufacturing policy, so bilateral knowledge exchange. And what we're thinking of doing is proposing an e-bus trial this year with the city of Johannesburg, which I'll explain a bit later. Under Tumi is a GIZ-funded project. It's an e-bus mission with a deep dive city in eThekwini municipality and a mentee city in city of Tshwane. It's been ongoing for a number of years, and we're actually coming to the end of it. So Tumi will end at the end of September this year. But essentially, it's been a program of capacity building at eThekwini municipality and Tshwane and getting them ready for the e-bus procurement. Some of the interventions and support offered is linked to the TBSA Sanedi project that many of you would have heard. So Tshwane will be getting 20 electric buses, eThekwini will be getting 19 electric buses, and a lot of the capacity work is making sure that these two cities are capacitated, have access to knowledge reports, best practice learnings from a global cities network to help prepare for the deployment. So from procurement to EV charging infrastructure to looking at the energy and grid aspects. In February this year, we had the Africa eBus workshops. There was a regional African conference in Durban, and that was with our 14 cities in Africa, just to bring global perspectives from the continent into South Africa to compare where we are, where we want to be. Following that workshop in February, we had the eThekwini Public Transport Electrification Workshop. That was a city-focused event in May. It brought together public transport operators, private bus operators in eThekwini municipality, and the minibus taxi industry, KZN Santaco, and the meter taxi industry. This eThekwini workshop was a follow-up request from the Africa eBus workshop in Feb. The mayor of eThekwini municipality had requested that we involve the minibus taxi industry in the EV transition because a lot of the work was focusing on buses only. So that was why we had that event. And then upcoming workshop will be with Tshwane in September, following a similar format to what was done in eThekwini, helping them get prepared for their e-bus deployment. I know DBSA has also been doing a lot of minibus taxi formalization work in the city of Tshwane as well. And so we're hoping to build on that and bring the electrification angle to Tshwane. It was quite successful in eThekwini. I think it was the first time minibus taxi operators had been officially engaged around the concept of electrification. I think the feedback was positive. There's interest from the industry, but there is a lot of work to be done to get the sector ready for electrification of the minibus sector. And then China Africa project is looking at partnering African cities with cities in China. So that will be a potential study tour that will happen later this year. Yeah, so this was just a summary on the Tumi EBOS mission. I think I've basically covered most of the points, focusing on two of the cities, eThekwini and Tshwane. I think yeah, I think the only thing that I didn't cover is that there's a study currently being commissioned on mainstreaming gender in public transport in the context of the EV transition. So that study will be shared later on this year. It's coming to an end at the end of July. Yeah, so this is just an overview of the Zebra program, the Zero Emission Bus Rapid Deployment Accelerator. So it's a joint partnership project between C40 Cities and ICCT, which is the International Council on Clean Transportation. How the partnership works is that C40 Cities brings the stakeholder relationship with cities through our stakeholder network with the mayors, and ICCT is the technical partner, which provides the deep dive technical assistance requested by cities. We've launched in South Africa in 2023. This just explains in South America, the Zebra partnership has supported the development of a pipeline of over 6,000 electric buses, and we're hoping to have the same success in the African region. So this is just explains, again, this is summarizing both the Tumi and the Zebra project activities. So currently the official Zebra cities are Cape Town and Johannesburg, and Tumi cities are eThekwini and Tshwane. With Cape Town, we, through the Zebra partnership, has been supporting on infrastructure design and charging infrastructure design. So the city of Cape Town is preparing for the first 30 electric buses that they've procured. It's arriving in 2027. They've asked for technical support around design of the charging infrastructure and the electric bus depot. And this was part of the technical exchange that was incorporated into the recent study to Chile and Brazil. Cape Town has also asked for support on alternative or innovative procurement models for electric buses. And so we're currently looking at the funding models, PTNG and PTOG, and whether there's any case studies globally of innovations in procurement that could be enabled through the current grant frameworks. We saw some very interesting case studies in other cities, such as leasing and electric bus as a service, as well as in Chile. There was a utility-based model where the electricity utility actually financed the rollout of the first 100 electric buses, including the charging infrastructure to sort of kickstart this sector. I think that was a very interesting case study, but also to note that electricity distribution in Santiago, Chile is privatized, so it's a different context to South Africa. Yeah, I think I've covered most of these other points. Just that we're also working with the electric bus OEMs, private sector. We want to enable more electric bus models to be available in the local market. So sometimes support is needed to provide investment promotion and homologation support for new OEMs that are entering the market. And then I'll touch on the e-bus radar later. So last year, we published a study on accelerating a transition to electric buses in the South African market. This report is available on our website, and I can share the link for those who want to read it afterwards. but it essentially covered the five South African C40 cities, covered the e-bus context in South Africa, the bus operator landscape, and the current financing arrangements. Some of the recommendations of the study recommended that to model the cost of e-buses in the operational environments and to help drive down costs, to look at the energy and reliable power supply aspects, where electric bus charging infrastructure needs to be located, to consider a temporary reduction in import taxes on e-buses to reduce that high upfront capex cost, provide some certainty regarding assignment of legacy contracts, bus contracts, and also there was an idea around permitting longer contracting terms for bus operational contracts. This is because the lifespan of electric buses are different to diesel buses, and operating contracts need to be updated in line with that. There were recommendations around government subsidy policy and different approaches to e-bus ownership, whether the city should procure, whether operators should procure. So we looked at innovative business models and business models for e-bus procurement, and that's what we're building on with the City of Cape Town. And then driving implementation actions to help manufacture electric buses in line with the EV white paper. There's been some great movements locally in terms of electric bus manufacturing. We've seen that MAN is now assembling electric bus chassis at the plant in Pinetown in Durban and manufacturing bus bodies in Gauteng. So that's positive news for the sector. I know that DTIC is looking at re-implementing the designation status for buses. Previously, for public procurement, you had to have a 80% local content inclusion for bus bodies, and for a number of years that supported the bus bodybuilding industry in South Africa. A few years ago, that was waived, and so that designation was devolved to the individual procuring departments. So they could decide whether they wanted to implement local content requirements or not. What happened with that is that cities procuring electric buses found that it was easier to just import electric buses fully built at the time. So I think DTIC is trying to re-implement that local content requirement to restart that bus bodybuilding sector that used to be there. And then the last recommendation was around financing and looking at proactively exploring mechanisms to lower the cost of financing. So that covers the leasing and e-bus as a service or even battery leasing options. One of the outputs of the study last year was a total cost of ownership calculator that was developed by the consultant that produced this report. Essentially, it's a spreadsheet tool that can help C40 cities in South Africa to just run a quick feasibility study when they are looking to compare the cost of procuring electric buses versus diesel buses. And this tool was designed to help with any knowledge gaps or information gaps that might be preventing cities from wanting to procure electric buses. The eBus Radar is a website that we developed for South America for the Zebra project there, and it's basically a live database, a map database of all eBus deployments on the continent, as well as mapping estimated greenhouse gas emissions reductions from those rollouts. We are currently building out the Africa version of this, so I think later this year we'll have an official launch of the Africa eBus Radar. So looking forward to that. Yeah, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Brian, thank you so much. This was very interesting and great footprint and very representative, the work you guys are doing, driving this transition to, well, making it more affordable and electric vehicles in Africa and South Africa and across the board. So thank you for those recommendations. I'm looking forward to working through them on my own time and conceptualize what you're saying to us and looking at your presentation again on YouTube. But thank you, Brian, and hopefully you're also available for a panel discussion just now.
Thank you.
Right, ladies and gents, let's bring up our program again. So, as you can see, we're now at the comfort break stage, and let's take a 5 minutes comfort break, and I'll see you again at 10:45. A little bit more on. Let's give you 8 minutes comfort break. So see you guys just now, and then we'll listen to City of Cape Town. Thank you, guys. Take a break. Thanks. Right, ladies and gents, let's take up our seats again. Look at our program. So our next presenters will be Mr. Craig Swain and Mr. Andrew Harris. They're from City of Cape Town. And they're going to give us a technical update on adopting zero-emission vehicles for my city in Cape Town. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Can you hear me, guys? Ladies
Yes,
and
we
gentlemen?
can.
Great.
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. I'm Andrew Harris. I am currently the Acting Director for Public Transport in the City of Cape Town. And I'm basically here to give an introduction to how we are where we are. And then I will hand over to Craig Swain to tell you exactly how we got there. The story starts about 5 years ago when Craig started working on trying to get a set of ice bus technical specs out for tender, and we ran into a number of problems in terms of getting compliant presentation or submissions back. We tried it again and we tried it again, and during the course of the My City Phase 2A process, while that project was well underway, a decision was made to head towards the battery electric vehicles or new energy vehicles, because we were battling with the tender returns on the ICE vehicles. And so for the last year and a half, we have been significantly under pressure trying to keep up with retrofitting ideas into depots that were under construction and preparing to get the electrical charging facilities in place. It's been a very, very busy last 2 years, and Craig is going to take you through that now, and we'll share some of the learning, some of the frustrations, and some of the things for others not to do. So, Craig, take it away. Thank you very much, people.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Harry. Harry, are you able to hear me firstly, and are you able to see my presentation?
I can see you, but we can't see your presentation yet.
Okay. We just stop and try to. Let's share. Just give me some sight if you do see it, Harry. Otherwise, I've sent it on to you.
We can see
you.
you.
Share it from, yeah, if you can share it from your side, Harry, it will also be great.
I can do that for you.
I'm not sure why the green button on Zoom is not appearing, but let me just. Okay, there we go. Sorry. So it's fine, Harry. I've got it. Thank you. We hide that and we bring this up. Then we'll go into presentation mode.
There we go.
Better?
Yep, excellent.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Andrew, for that segue. When I heard Kibi Manana speaking and Pulani and Priyan, it was quite encouraging because I do think there's an overlap and we're all in agreement, and there's many things that I might discuss that's probably in line with what they've discussed, but just to probably give an opening before we start the presentation. And I'm noting the time, and I'm going to time myself, knowing that I can probably overspeak. But my name is Craig Swain. I work for the City of Cape Town in the Urban Mobility Department. The Urban Mobility Directorate, the Public Transport Department, and I'm the Fleet Manager. And as Andrew rightfully said, we started this process quite some time back. And given the time constraints that we have in terms of this presentation, which is just 35 to 40 minutes, I will present a high-level summary across several complex topics which we've undertaken in terms of studies. But I will be very I'll touch on all those things, aiming to provide a practical, municipal-based view on Cape Town's journey towards electric vehicles. I'll cover the progress made, the transition efforts underway, and the speed bumps we've encountered along the way, both technical and institutional. And as Andrew highlighted, it is quite a few speed bumps. Part of this journey includes a significant pivot that we had to make in terms of our journey. Our journey was always supposed to move from one into the other. And that journey was not entirely voluntary. It was international markets are moving rapidly away from fossil fuel technologies, which has begun to limit the availability and long-term viability of internal combustion engines. The global trend forcing local governments to align with alternate energy solutions, often ahead of full local readiness. While newer generation diesel vehicles offer better emissions profiles and remain relevant in the short term, global supply chains and regulatory directions are clearly leaning towards zero emissions. And I think our previous guest speaker spoke exactly to that point. This directly affects what municipalities like ours can procure and maintain sustainably. I'll touch on those type of keywords that we would like to address. A major cost consideration is the battery management, which we will look at, which now forms part, or a substantial part of the total cost of ownership of the vehicle. It's not just the upfront cost; it's the
Greg,
long-term
sorry,
monitoring.
are you going through your presentation
No,
at the
no,
moment? Because it's not
Andrew,
changing.
Andrew, yeah, I will start that presentation. I'm just trying to give some backdrop because there's many things that was covered that I will just run through. And then what we will deal with as we go along, we'll just highlight key areas. So just to start off with, so in the Cape Town context, what was discussed from KIBI in terms of the ITPN, which is the Integrated Public Transport Network Plan. And as she rightfully said, the City of Cape Town is a part of that. And in that, we have our motor cars, buses, taxis, trains, non-motorized or NMT transport. We have in our BRT system at this current point in time, which runs and operates on the Atlantic seaboard. It is a fleet of 350 high-flow vehicles, and we have a small contingent of low-flow vehicles. They operate on our Atlantic seaboard. It's creating great improvements and affordability in that areas, and all over the show we're having other complexes pop up. So this has been really a sort of area that areas have started to actually populate around it, which we believe is a great thing. We would still, and so that's in our current state, and those vehicles are close to 12 years old. Some of them are, others are closing to that figure, and which we are considering. We have to consider now the replacement of those vehicles in the near future in order to have them replaced. And as I said early on, it is going to be not as straightforward because we were planning on transitioning in a more journey approach from low emissions, which we always refer to Euro 6, and then to zero emissions, and then that would have been the approach. And I like what I think Polani said, was that it's not just zero emissions. It's not only referring to EVs. We need to be open-minded, and that's why Cape Town, and we will run through that. We've adopted a different approach. So this is in a nutshell what KIBI said early on. Cape Town's commitments, we got climate commitments, we got 2050 commitments, we got action plans, we got strategies. So 20.1 of the action plan, which is the bullet point 4, mandates the development of a procurement strategy for low carbon emission vehicles, which is also in line with the G40 Green and Healthy Streets Declaration. And the NDOT Green Transport Strategy is 10% municipal bus fleets to be clean energy in the next 10 to 20 years. So that is our sort of strategy. We've identified how do we make the transition. We sat down, we devised a strategy to first incorporate a feasibility study. The feasibility study was the first point of call. We looked at what is most suitable for Cape Town in terms of our topography, our range, our requirement in terms of where we want to roll out. We had a look at, if you look at 1.2.2, it speaks to CNG gas, hydrogen electric, battery electric, hybrid, and Euro 6 diesel. Because we always believe that there is, because of the prices and the values of diesel buses, it is, as part of your operation, you need to incorporate everything into one. And that is only one source. However, because the study was never exhaustive, because there's other technologies as well, like your hybrid, your compressed natural gas and your hydrogen. So the multi-criteria analysis in a nutshell was based on quite a few important factors, but let me rather show you that factors as is listed in this table, which is quite important. We had the categories, and we had the criteria. Now, the criteria on the left-hand side column, we arranged them into certain areas, which is quite critical. We said operational performance. What is now operational performance? The range, the zero emissions, range, kilometers, route flexibility, ease of refueling. And we took the different types of vehicles into that with the different alternate energies, diesel, hybrid, CNG gas, hydrogen, fuel cell, and electric. We put them all into that table, a multi-criteria analysis table, and we scored them. And we used refueling in the second score. We use the environmental factors in terms of the CO2 emissions and gases. We use the economy in terms of the capex and operational expenditure, and we use the total cost of ownership, the maintenance, and all those type of things. We also looked at fuel characteristics, renewable, as Polani said earlier about, there was a discussion surrounding renewables as well. We looked at the vehicles, as the total cost of ownership of the vehicles, not only the total cost of ownership, but your battery as a second life and your battery as a disposable value in terms of costing as well. We also looked at the legislation and tendering compliance. Sorry, this is just a table that I thought I'll bring in just to give us an idea of what we did as our second study as part of after the feasibility study. We looked at a cost. What was the total cost of ownership of these type of vehicles as opposed to an ICE vehicle, a diesel vehicle where cost is concerned, capital outlay. And then on the other side, we looked at the total cost of ownership. And these are studies that was quite in-depth, this large volumes that was approved by council. It was taken into account. So it wasn't just that we started to realize that this is the approach we wanted to use, and we followed through on this approach. It was a carefully strategized approach in terms of the way forward. So at the end, after everything else, we came up with a strategy. We found that a dual path strategy for the city of Cape Town is the most appropriate. We were looking at a dual path between Euro 6 vehicles and battery electric vehicles as number one and number two, until the others come into play in terms of the availability and all those things. Those will be considered in the future as well. We then looked at, firstly, our charging requirements. We looked at it, what's the world, what internationally, how do they look at charges, how much charges should be available. We checked our routes, our kilometers per day, how many buses would operate those kilometers, what type of vehicle would we require, what type of vehicle would we require in order to have our vehicles charged in a window of one window at night. How much kilometers could those vehicles be? So obviously there's trade-offs to that, but I'll speak to that later on, just in terms of when you choose a vehicle, how do you choose the vehicle? Do you choose it on range? Because when you choose the range, then you lose out on seating, and you lose out on space for passengers, and all those sorts of things. So those are key considerations that was taken. And these this was measured against international standards and how it's developed, and how many charges would be required in terms of this operation, and how you can scale this operation as you go along. This is our Metro Southeast route. So I spoke about the Atlantic seaboard. Here I'm speaking more about the route that we are planning on our EV buses that we have procured. We've got two depots that I'll show pictures of as we go along. We've got two depots that's down here in the Spine Road side, the adjacent depots. We'll have sight of those depots, and we also got the route that they would undertake, which is a mixed traffic route. It's not just a route that's one straight line, so it's mixed traffic. There are areas on the red road, there's areas that there will be mixed traffic. So we also have to assign those things. This is just perhaps giving you some sort of indication of our depots. We've got the East Depot on the left, and on the right we've got the West Depot. They are basically mirror images of themselves. It's quite further down the design. We are planning on these depots to be handed over within the next few months. You can see on the left here, we've identified based on research and in our infrastructure and design team looking at the infrastructure, which type of infrastructure do we go for? We were looking at, and as the depots were built, we ensured that there were conduits underneath to ensure that we could cable in a wishbone phase where the buses actually park in a wishbone type of setup, which would help with being able to charge more than one vehicle at one given point in time, and then thereby having sort of a more efficient approach to the charging of vehicles at the depot. That's just more pictures of what we're referring to. Oh, so let me just go back to the previous one. So I think it was Kibi that mentioned the energy and the energy supplier and Eskom and the City of Cape Town is important. And this circle over here is where we are planning on having our substations in order to support the depot with EVs. It is quite important to consider, and just for us to understand better, there will be conversations surrounding renewable energy. We will have conversations surrounding load shedding. We will talk to certain things of that nature, because I'm sure everybody is quite interested in hearing how those type of things are being considered. But renewable energy and not being totally dependent on your main suppliers like city supply or Eskom supply, the areas allocated around here could potentially and will be looked at, and the roofing structures and solar paneling and those type of things. But as we know, with the amount of energy required, it's actually quite a huge amount. So we will have supply support in terms of Eskom and City Energy. Okay, and then maybe just as a point where we the City of Cape Town would like to just put it out there and say that this is the first, one of the biggest projects that we undertaken. This is the Sky Circle, and this is how far we are in the Sky Circle. These are the latest pics. These are designated bus routes coming from the different areas from the Metro Southeast going into, so there's 4 of them. Oops, sorry. It's 4 of them that's coming in. 2 coming in from the Metro Southeast, that one and that side, and then they are going to your Wynberg and your Clem on this side. And this just gives you an idea and the scale of the project, and our infrastructure team is very, very far in advance, and this will be rolled out in the next few years. So just to give some sort of indication, firstly, remember, ICE vehicles, we always just considered the vehicle as being your product. And the vehicle had a fuel tank, and you could be flexible in the approach of the operation. It could be go out and be used anyway. Now we're looking, when we're talking EVs, we have to shift our paradigm in terms of system approach. And what systems do we require in terms of an ecosystem for that product? Now, the key actors involved there is the authorities, is the public transport operators, and the energy suppliers we mentioned earlier. So the shift, your mindset, especially from a local perspective, and most of this discussion that I'll be or most of this presentation deals with the local conditions and local procurement and everything in the local government space, which is quite important for me to unpack and for people to understand how do we procure within the local government space, and why is it so important that I bring this message across to you. This just gives us a flow chart in terms of how we approached it, in terms of developing firstly the operation, the timetables, the bus types, the infrastructure. We looked at environmental factors, the climate, seasons, charging strategies, the drivers required, because the ratio of diesel bus and EV bus is not 1-to-1 because of other consideration. It's not as flexible as diesel buses. We looked at financial consequences, and we looked at the transmission plan. This is just a phased approach in terms of how you go about it, if, when, what, and how. But this is quite important, and I think I would like to probably spend a few minutes on this. We are procurement regulations because we are within a local government setup, our organization. We are required by law and our framework is the MFMA, which is the Municipal Finance Management Act. And in that, it's the SM policy, which is the framework is clear and rigid. And policy adherence dictates responsiveness for bidders. And it's important for the OEMs and companies out there, private operators, private organizations, to understand that these processes are these requirements, these obligations, these submission documents. I always say a person can have the best files, the best submission documents, the best bus, the most proven bus worldwide. If the documents aren't up to the standard that's required in terms of the City of Cape Town's standards, and the MFMA and the SM policy, if it is not within that and it doesn't comply, we unfortunately do not have a second bite. We have to move that aside because it has to be clear, it has to conform, it has to adhere to every single requirement, especially if that requirement is responsive. So it is probably, if you look at the private organizations, they would look at our tenders and why is certain tenders non-responsive, and why did we go 3 times out on diesel tenders and not. But it's because we are very rigid and there's no flexibility. We have to, it has to be done correctly, and that is, there's no sort of means we can bypass that. So we're very clear when we start to evaluate any tenders in terms of this. So the point that I'm trying to make is any potential tenders out there, when you do your submissions, make sure that every request within the documents are adhered to, is not overlooked. There are responsive requirements. There's quite a few of those things, because we do not have, we're not a private concern where we have we can do certain things. We have to stick to the laws and the rules and the regulations. I know I kept on that point, but I think it's quite important that I bring that across, that people understand. So the alternate energy market is new and unknown, and municipalities have a strict framework that just re-emphasizes what I said. The OEMs, what we did realize, the OEMs are, the appetite for small quantities, large volume bespoke buses is probably better, and we do understand the reasons behind that. But I will touch on what Priyan spoke to with the local content. I've got it further down at the end of this, where we will also speak a bit about that. And just to give you indication of, from a municipal point of view, a tendering process and build process, if it's done locally, could take up to 12 months to 18 months for the procurement process, and then for the build process up to 2 years. And then obviously there's large carrying costs at the premium, and advance payments, there's our set-offs. So just in terms of the regulation and universal accessibility, because I said earlier, we do procure vehicles that are they are BRT vehicles, they are bespoke vehicles, they are bespoke to the allocation of the vehicle. It has to conform to that. We build stations to that design. We build the roads, everything else. It's all standard, so we have to stick to those bespoke buses. The bespoke buses that are universally accessible in terms of our grant funding, to ensure that we do get our grant funding. Otherwise, we cannot get grant funding if it doesn't comply to UA accessibility. Currently now, we have a seating configuration of 2x2, which, as opposed to a commuter bus, which is 3x2 with more people seated. Our distances as well as we have peak distances of 90 minutes in the peak. So it is a bit of a concern, and that is currently being considered in terms of having both. We will have 3x2 configuration and 2x2 configuration to support universal accessibility. There's been a request from OEMs at different times for regulation to consider the increase in axle weights in order to be able to carry more passengers. And then local content has been relaxed over the past few years. I think it's 3 years ago, where local content was 80-20, which meant that 80-20 principle that 80% needed to be locally produced or manufactured, and 20% could be imported. That has been relaxed. So we don't no longer need to, we can import the vehicle fully built, we can import the vehicle semi-knockdown or completely knockdown. Those are the different stages. We're not sure how long this lasts, but at this point in time, it's quite easy for import in terms of bringing the vehicle in. However, it comes at a major cost in terms of ad valorem taxes, surcharges, and import duties. We have, at the City of Cape Town, we have still not, because we do rely sustainability and we look at cost. And we also do believe that our Euro 6 vehicles would be a low emissions, not zero, but low emissions with that would be part of our sort of fleet to ensure our fleet operates efficiently and have the best of both worlds just in terms of that flexibility. The concerns that we do have is that 10 ppm availability in terms of volumes that we would require. We know that 10 ppm is available in the country at certain fuel stations. However, it's not fully available in terms of bulk usage in our local conditions as the Western Cape itself. So that's, to us, is a bit of a problem. We do understand that the regulation is supposed to be in 2027, but those regulations were supposed to be in 2023 as well, and was pushed back. So that is a risk for us, and the biggest risk is having those vehicles and not having the fuel availability. As Andrew said, Cape Town has had non-responsive tenders, and that was which on the diesel side, which moved us towards alternate energies. We spoke about 100 bus volume. A point of caution that we've looked at is life expectancy of Euro 3, 4, 5 vehicles and Euro 6. The first Euro 3, 4, 5, procuring those buses comes at a risk of chassis discontinuation. Risk of parts lead time delay means more spare capacity required in operations. And it's not feasible to carry large stocks for our operators itself. The Euro 6 vehicles are slightly more expensive when comparing to all, but still lower than alternate energy vehicles, which makes it a bit more sustainable for us. Sorry. The positivity around diesel or ICE vehicles is the matured skills in diesel buses. And there's a retrofitment of the current chassis that I think Priyan did highlight, that MAN is developing locally on sort of pre-existing chassis where they are adding batteries. I'll have pictures on this, and I think this is on everybody's lips, is the risk of EV-related fires. While this risk deserves attention, in many cases it's overhyped or misunderstood. Evidence from international deployments suggests that with the right specification, right prevention systems, and operational protocols, these risks can be effectively managed and mitigated, just like with any other technology. So in this, we've highlighted the skills gap. We've looked at thermal management, the battery, the motor inverter, the cooling needs, the fire risk management, thermal runaway. How do we bridge that? What do we have in place? How do we ensure that our firefighters are able to deal with it? Accidents-wise also needs to be considered. I have a few pictures just to highlight that. So there's also the skills gap, which limits the limited availability of software engineers with EV control experience. When I say that, I'm speaking to not only the software engineers where the infrastructure is concerned, but also software engineers to be able to monitor and manage the battery component of the asset after the vehicle is built and while the vehicle is in operation. Heavy reliance on imported software models, very few locally available. As I spoke to the fire department training, we need proper standard operating practices, fire blankets, containment center systems, suppression systems. One of the concerns and challenges that we have is the limited builder skills in SA. Few local manufacturers experienced in EV assembly, lack of specialist EV component suppliers, scarcity of trained EV technicians, engineers, battery specialists, little exposure to the ISO functionality of safety requirement, power electronics, HV systems, need for partnership with international OEMs. I think that's quite important. We can't just accept the vehicle and not have proper maintenance plans in place to be able to help us to secure this asset and make sure this asset gives us value for money in terms of the capital expenditure. Maybe just a few pictures that is always seen probably on the news, and this is the pictures that everybody said these vehicles burn, but every vehicle burns. It's just how do we contain it and how do we actually, what do we put in place? We also note that at this point in time, there's no regulations anywhere in the world. People are using best practices, so there's no real regulations that regulates what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, all those stuff. So those are challenges that we are facing. Fortunately for us, I don't think we have this situation where the flood risk for e-buses. I don't think the table, especially where we are situated, there's not a problem, especially if your batteries are underneath. But these batteries are very concealed. I don't think we should have a problem unless you want to mitigate the risk altogether and have your batteries on the roof, which might not be the most appealing looking or aerodynamic looking vehicle that you will find. Those are just the IPs in terms of how do you mitigate that risk to ensure that your vehicle complies. I've got a section. Sorry, Harry, can I just stop there quickly? How many minutes do I have left?
Still have 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Harry. So then we're talking about the battery management systems. And these are quite important, controls, charging, discharging. And as I said, we receive the bus, we have the infrastructure, we have the chargers. Now there's a third part of the ecosystem which deals with when that vehicle is in operation, how do we manage it, how do we control it, how do we ensure we get battery life. So the battery management system is there as an aftermarket product to be able to control your charging, your discharging rates, to prevent cell degradation. They also balance the cell voltages dynamically. It limits usage under high temperatures or low state of charge conditions. There are so many products AI-driven these days that does predictive maintenance. We also look at those smart chargers and that systems that the time of use charging integrated with grid conditions. And there's an independent, whether there should be an independent management advantage when battery life is managed by OEMs or third-party lifespan is maximized. So just to give you an indication, we've got, originally it was envisaged that these vehicles and these batteries would be, their life expectancy was 5 to 7 years in many European countries based on having good protocols in place for battery management. It's well over 10 years, and I mean, it's only becoming better and better, and the battery technology is becoming more advanced and more advanced in the future. Currently now, total cost of ownership includes the replacement of a battery over life. But as things go, and if you have the proper processes in place, you could potentially get away with having a battery last much longer. This just speaks to probably the technical side more, which just basically speaks to a kilowatt of battery cost about 10,000 Rand. If you're looking at a 90 kilowatt battery, you can do the sums. And the weight of the battery is also quite important. So at this point in time, we've gone for a vehicle with a range of 300 kilometers, which means that we got 5 90-kilowatt batteries, which is quite heavy, which means that it basically impacts on your passenger numbers. We also looked at what is your general usage. If you consider general usage in terms of energy, we're saying 1.2 kilowatts per hour per kilometer, which is equivalent to your 0.67 liter of diesel per kilometer. So that is a good range based on your topography and the fact that we do have more of the red roads, which is bus only, which will help us to achieve those sort of routes. And we have stops that helps for the regenerative braking, which also is quite important. That's why driver training is utmost. We considered the cold environment, which is quite bad for battery life. And fortunately for us, South Africa and Cape Town specifically, we won't have that problems in terms of our best operating speeds or our best operating conditions. So as I said earlier on, slow, gentle braking is better for regenerative power. 5 to 10% could be improvement in terms of the efficiency for the day. Sudden sharp braking doesn't help. Battery swapping and wireless charging not practical at this point in time, and that seems to be in the European space where they are looking at those battery swapping as you would swap a normal battery on a car. You could potentially have the same sort of swap in mind in terms of these bigger vehicles. Degradation is much faster in terms of stressful battery usage. And then just based on the time, there's just more things that is quite important to be engaged with in the tender documents and make sure that all those things are complied with, and especially that the OEM is able to provide all the data and that all these things are integrated into your systems. This just takes more considerations in terms of how to use the batteries, how to monitor these batteries. And then just going to lastly to the lessons learned from other countries, where they looked at standardized platforms across large fleets, centralized charging depots, government subsidy enable rapid scale-up, battery degradation was faster than expected, need for consistent driver training. What works? Strong collaboration between the different parties, overnight depot charging, optimized grid usage, and then lessons learned was weather. And then maybe just to my last few slides speaks to battery leasing. It is a procurement model, and Priyan did mention the fact that there is this concerted effort to look at different procurement models where battery leasing, you procure the bus, but you don't procure the batteries, and the batteries become part of the OEM's ownership, and they replace it. So you take that risk or you mitigate that risk. You also have in Chile, as was mentioned earlier, the public-private partnerships help absorb risk, and in that space, OEMs retain battery responsibility. In the US, software management on battery packs extended the life beyond 10 years. Solar power depots supported grid resilience. Poor data management led to warranty claims. And for takeaways for South Africa, invest early in technical training for maintenance. OEM managed batteries offer longer lifespan. Grid coordination is critical, and participation models help share the risk. So as I said, we got a dual path strategy. The next strategy is to do a total cost of ownership other than a turnkey solution. We currently have a tender that has been awarded. We're starting our process on we will have our first bus homologated before the end of this year, and we'll start the full build production line within 2026 to have our buses available for the future. That's just what we're procuring, and this is our final product. Thank you very much. Thank you, Harry. That's all from our side.
Thank you so much, Craig. That was seriously interesting. Looking at that multi-criteria decision analysis you're doing, it's making us understand how complex it is what you're busy with. And so thank you very much for that. really appreciate it, and I'm quite sure that they will engage with you during the panel discussion just now. So
Harry,
I think also
if I
looking
could,
at those pictures, sorry, and Andrew.
sorry, if I could just add in there, there's each of those fairly bland statements on those last sets of slides are extremely important in terms of the implication. So although it's a one-liner, there's a whole lot of discussions that all of us need to be engaged in to make sure that we don't run into problems later on. But thanks, Craig.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Craig. Hopefully we can arrange in the nearby future site visit to what you guys are building there through the Transport Forum. Maybe we can, twist your arm for something like that in the future.
Anything is possible, Harry.
Very interesting. Thank you so much. Right, ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, we've got Mr. Justin Coetzee. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Go Metro. He's going to talk to us about the mini taxi electrification package. Thank you very much, Justin.
Thank you, Harry. It's good to see everybody. Some very familiar names on the guest list. So it's, yeah, very good to see everyone. Can you see my screen? Is that
all
fine?
good? Thank you, Justin.
Okay, great. So yeah, so thanks. I think, yeah, I'm Justin Coetzee, CEO of Go Metro. Our advisory arm is a company called Better Rides. And so today's presentation is around the advisory and consulting work that we've done around minibus taxi electrification. Just a little bit about that, our business unit. So our real focus is to help cities to implement greener and equitable mobility for all, looking at the three converging waves of urban mobility and urbanization, electrification, and the climate crisis that we find ourselves in. And the convergence of those three trends is something that Better Rides believes it can offer a solution to. It comes from the work that Go Metro, I think, is well known for in South Africa, which is transport data and surveys. Our transport data and survey methodologies still are a core of our business. But to that, we've added operational optimizations as well as EV Fit, which is a very exciting software. We talk about AI. This is built and made by South Africans, pioneered by Dr. Krista Sachs, who I think is a familiar friend of the Transport Forum as well. And it's a service that we're offering to logistics operators to transition their heavy good vehicles, HGVs, to the world of EV. Buses go round and round in circles, and they're pretty predictable. They're very hard to electrify, as we've seen, but they're a little bit easier than trucks that could do any number of journeys every single day. And so EV Fit is an algorithm made for helping truck operators to electrify. Okay, enough with the ad. You can visit the website if you want to see more. Let's talk about why we're here today, which is to talk about the minibus taxi industry. So the key question today is, how do we decarbonize the minibus taxi industry in South Africa? And the answer is complicated, and you'll see the many layers of a package, which is, I think, why Ibrahim's called this a package, because it is really an integrated solution that is going to help us get this over the line. So firstly, let's just reflect. This is more normally for international audiences. I think everybody understands the importance of the minibus taxi industry to how South Africans get to work and get to school and access the economy. We also understand just what an important contributor to society the industry is, as well as a major taxpayer in the form of fuel duties, levies, and vehicle purchases. So significant contributor to the economy, job creator, and one sector which I think has survived a lot of blows thrown at it over the last few years with COVID and change in urban form, but is an important integral part of our economy. So this is the 5 reasons why electrifying the minibus taxi sector is a daunting task. Firstly, you will struggle to buy an electric minibus taxi if you were to go anywhere in town. Secondly, as you saw, the cost per kilowatt hour of a battery is a lot more expensive than an empty diesel tank. And so you're facing a very expensive vehicle that has a 42% duty added to it as well if it's fully imported. It's I call it the sticker shock. The equivalent vehicle will be double the price if you try and purchase it outright. Thirdly, you won't be able to plug it in very easily. You could maybe plug it into your home connection if that home connection is legal. But it'll take 8 hours for you to get that vehicle to fully charged. And your family might not be happy because the prepaid meter keeps tapping out. We're talking about 70 to 90 kilowatts of energy, which is quite significant. Thirdly, or fourthly, there's a reason why we've got a very strong brand in South Africa, and that's because no matter rain or shine, you can find a bumper, a light, a brake, a shock, and the vehicle parts market is readily available for you to keep your vehicle on the road. A minibus taxi that is not running, is not earning, and therefore is a liability, not an asset. And so after purchase, trust and security is important. And then fifthly, we always have the daunting prospect of load shedding just around the corner, don't we? And we've been blessed this year, but we know how quickly things can change. So what happens when you can't plug your vehicle in and you can't earn and you're in the dark? So that's why this is a really, really, really terrible idea. Thank you so much for coming to the presentation. It was really, really useful. No, of course not. We're South Africans. We solve problems, right? So let's try and solve these problems one by one. So firstly, last year we introduced the eCanva to the South African market with our partners, the University of Stellenbosch, Mix Telematics, ACDC Dynamics, HSW Global, and I fear I might be forgetting another partner. And if I have, I'm very, very sorry. Powerfleet. How can I forget? And so we've partnered with our partners to bring a test vehicle into South Africa and to present this to the market and to the industry and really to just get the conversation going. It's one thing to conceptualize and theorize and have a theoretical understanding of how this could maybe work. It's another thing to have 2 tons of metal and battery in front of you working or not working. And we'll find out as we run our tests. As we've been South Africanizing this vehicle, yes, that is a term, I looked it up. We've added larger rear brakes than is the standard issue. Not because South Africans are necessarily heavier than your average Chinese passenger, but also because we have much more stringent braking tests. And we actually have a gravel roads braking test, which other countries don't. So to pass and homologate and be road legal, we have a very, very stringent quality regime in South Africa, which has necessitated the upgrading of the brakes. We've also added an Android tablet so that we can accept payment systems. There's a lot of startups now, like Loop and Waxed Mobile, that are offering payment systems on Android devices. So we could launch the vehicle accepting cashless payments upfront. We've been looking at what can we localize in South Africa. So sourcing bumpers, lights, suspension, what parts can we already start assembly in South Africa so that when we start importing the vehicle, we can import it semi-knockdown. So it comes with the shell, the monocoque chassis, and we add as much value as possible in South Africa and create as many jobs in South Africa. We've been looking at the seat selection. Interesting feedback from the industry was that, well, we don't really need the headrest. Can we save some money and not have the headrest for our passengers? So we've been looking at more utilitarian seats. And then based on the range tests we've been collecting data on, we're looking at 3 battery options, 50, 70, and 100 kilowatts. And then 3 finishes, a commuter finish, a shuttle/luxury finish, and a cargo van finish. Our partner is Higer. They are, I'm told by them last week, they're number 2 in China now, and they're number 1 in Korea. So they sell more buses in Korea than Hyundai, which I think is quite an interesting statistic. But very, very high quality, really a vehicle that I think has had 4 iterations in improvements since we've been working with the manufacturer, and one who is very committed to South Africa and very committed to localization. Very strong partnership of the last 3-4 years with this manufacturer. Statistics on the vehicle, we're looking at a 200 to 250 kilometer range, depending on battery choice. Slow charging will take you 8 hours on a 7 kilowatt AC connection. Fast charging will take you 50 minutes on a 50 kilowatt DC connection. Carries 15 passengers, 16 if you want to put the laptop seat in. But your operational savings are 40 to 70%, and I'll show you some of that information a bit later today. When we launched the vehicle, we achieved every engineer's career goal, which is to make the cover of Engineering News, also a sponsor of Transport SIG. And so it's job done. We made the cover of Engineering News in November with the arrival of the Ikamba. But also what's interesting about this is that we sit in this forum and we feel like a bit, in our little technocratic bubble of transport planners and, this little niche. But the public interest for this technology and for this to potentially maybe work was really overwhelming last year. And so as we start rolling out and you start seeing some of the other work that is planned, I do believe that the public will take a keen interest in how this progresses. So we were very, very fortunate to have the MEC for Transport for Gauteng at our launch and launch the vehicle with us last year, October. But the statistics are quite interesting. So if we fully import the vehicle, there is a major duty that's attached to it. So assuming a fully imported vehicle, which is the worst case, adding the service charges and the maintenance and charging, your total cost of ownership over 15 years saves at least 2 million rand compared to the diesel. Now that assumes the very worst case when it comes to electricity pricing. So you're not bulk buying. The very worst when it comes to import duties. So your worst case is that you are saving 2 million rand. But to make it more real, when I presented the vehicle to more than 100 owners at the Smart Mobility Africa conference last year, I learned that a diesel fuel injector costs 21,950 Rand ex VAT. And unfortunately, that diesel fuel injector needs to get replaced maybe once a year, maybe every 6 months, because of the driver being able to choose where he fills up, but the owner being responsible for maintenance. And what was interesting about the conversations was when you open up the vehicle and there's 20 moving parts and not 2,000, I believe that the maintenance savings are going to be very, very strong as a convincing agent for the owners to purchase. We all think diesel and fuel, but the owner doesn't necessarily pay for the diesel or fuel. That comes out of the driver's pocket. Maintenance and moving parts, that's what comes out of the owner's pocket. So we're focusing really on, in terms of understanding and educating the market, the maintenance savings is where we believe the needle really moves for owners. Okay, so that's the vehicle. Tick, we now have a vehicle. With some localization, we can potentially reduce the sticker shock, the sticker price. And there's models that we're looking at with regards to how we make that feasible. But really, I think what Ibrahim asked me to present today is to show you our concept of a charge hub. So we all focus on the vehicle and we all think in an electric vehicle industry is about the vehicle, but it's actually more about the supporting infrastructure and being able to support those vehicles' presence, whether it's the grid upgrade, whether it is the charger, whether it is the ease of use. So what is a charge hub? So in our travels, we came across this design or concept from a partner in, I think this was Nanjing in China, called Eking Pao. But there are many, many companies in China that are leading the charge when it comes to charging. This is a charge hub, but actually this is a charge hub in real life. So it's a structure which is a beacon or a hub for vehicles to come and be sure that they can get a fast charge. Reverse in, plug in, and within an hour, you're good to go. This is just another view of it on a cold January morning. And you can see that vehicles are under a structure. You've got some security, you've got stopping beacons, blue paint, very, very important. You have to have the blue paint. It's not a charge hub if you don't have blue paint on the road. That's just the law. And then what's interesting about the chargers that we're seeing coming out of China now is that they're able to change the rating based on the car that's plugged in. So we used to, well, the current paradigm of the technology that we have access to is a nozzle is 50 kilowatts. But in China, with the new models, they're variable charging. So if you plug into a 150 kilowatt car, it'll give you 150 kilowatts. If you plug into a 50 kilowatt car, it'll give you 50 kilowatts. So it's a variable charger. So that changes the economics. That's just what the charging stacks looks like. Also tremendously coming down in price. And what we've seen with solar, what we've seen with batteries, we're now seeing with fast chargers. So let's show you a little bit about what this package looks like in a South African context, right? Let's South Africanize this EV industry. So Century City, for those of you who've never been to the south in Cape Town, Century City is a 250 hectare, 60, or I think about 200,000 people make use of this precinct every single day. It's home to businesses, a large shopping center, residences, and as you can see where the big purple arrows pointed, more than 100 minibus taxis and 15 associations use that facility as their hub, as their rank. This is just a shot of the rank. You can see it's intramodal. So we have a minibus taxi rank next to a My City bus station, next to a Golden Arrow bus stop. So you have all three prevalent modes that are available to meet here. I think rail's on the other side of the precinct. And so what we have designed and come up with, thanks to funding from the Department of Science and Innovation, as well as the Yilo Firestarter program, is this concept of a charge hub. What's interesting, working with the City of Cape Town electrical team, with the Century City Property Owners Association, as well as its technical partners, we're trying to build this hub to fit within the grid constraints as well as within the lower power usage. So rather than putting a mistake everyone makes when they first electrify, they think every taxi must get a charger. And if you were to put 100 taxis down with 100 chargers, you'd blow up the grid. What we're looking at here is trying to have a shared facility, almost like a car wash. A shared facility that you pull in, you charge, you leave, and we then can recycle that spot or that space for another vehicle. Each charging slot's an hour, and each charge can then happen. By having a shared facility, you have a smaller grid connection. You don't have to build that massive power substation and have huge wheeling and gears. You're trying to limit the size of your copper, but you're still able to service the industry. We believe the future of the minibus taxi sector electrifying is mini hubs as shared facilities spread out across the metropole in different zones. And as a South African, you'll know that's how you solve for load shedding, right? You drive to a place that has power during what they call them, not the zones, the stages. Someone has power during stage 2, you go to get some power. So the hub is an integrated unit. What's interesting about this is that the concept then allows us to look at localization and local economic content. We talk about the township economy. This is the township economy at work, because someone has to run the hub, manage the hub, support the hub, and who's better placed than the local taxi industry to provide facility management, facility managers, and enter into agreements with us. That's the model that we're following in some areas. In Century City, where all that work's already been done by the Century City Property Owners Association, and we're working with the facility owner to provide facility management. When we're working in a rank or a rank adjacent facility, we very much are able to include local participation from the taxi industry. And then as we start at this convergence of power and mobility, which is very exciting, we're starting to look at things like solar roofs. What's the output that can come from it? We're not necessarily able to charge the vehicles from solar directly yet. We will be needing wheeling arrangements for the foreseeable future. But definitely being able to bring solar roofs to a facility will improve that facility. A little bit about the data. So obviously, GoMetro has a history in public transport data and data surveys. So we plugged our tracking units into taxis for 2 weeks at a time. We collected data over what a vehicle does just by almost like just following it around and seeing what it does. And I think what's very interesting is you'd think that, well, is 200 kilometers range enough when the range is 300, 380, 294? Surely just in the battery needs to be 300 kilometers, right? Because the daily range is 380. Isn't 200 just too small? Well, when you drill into the data, you'll find that the maximum trip distance on average never exceeds, in this case, 125, 141, 86, 134, 122, 188. There's one time where it goes over 200 as the maximum trip distance. So when you look at the maximum trip distance, it's normally 35, 70, 100, 120. That's the quantum of trips because that's pretty much the size of South African cities as from one end to the other when a commuting trip is done. The more interesting statistic I find is total time spent at the facility, Century City, and the maximum consecutive time. So a vehicle arrives after a 120-kilometer trip, and it has 2 hours and 31 minutes before it leaves again. That's more than enough time to plug in and charge should you need a charge. And if you can't plug in here, plug in somewhere else. And so the time at a facility and the maximum distance between visits are the key metrics we look at. In this case, maximum distance 165, time more than 2 hours, green light, this taxi can charge successfully. The savings, when you look at just the fuel, never mind maintenance, and after spending time with the industry, we've learned that maintenance is actually really critical. Just on fuel, which is the paradigm we would normally approach this, your monthly savings in fuel costs is 14,000 Rand for this particular vehicle. So you go from spending 20,000 Rand on fuel to spending 6,000 Rand on power to do the same number of kilometers. I think we've got a business case. So when we just moving along, so we do that with on private land with a private facility owner in the form of Century City. What does it look like with the more than 2,000 taxi ranks that are public facilities that are owned by a municipality, that are run by a municipality, that are servicing the communities? And that's by far the majority of the industry. So we've partnered with Stellenbosch Municipality at the central taxi rank Bergsicht to answer that question. What would a public facility look like on public land? And using the legislation processes and the constraints of the MFMA. So Bergsicht is home to about 350 taxis, I think, if my memory serves me correctly. I think there's about 13 to 15 lanes. And as you can see here, this is just the composition. You've got the stacking lanes, you've got the queuing area, you've got a wash bay. Entrance is on Merriman Avenue and exit is on Bird Street, I think. And so this orange blob here is a burnt down theater. It's a derelict piece of municipal land that's got nothing on it. And so we are working on a design to lease that piece of ground for a rank adjacent charge facility, replicating what we're doing in Century City, but this time in a public context. This is what it looks like. 16 charge bays versus the 10 previous, 800 square meters. There's fencing, security, solar, CCTV, entry and exit booms. And what's interesting is, again, we're not charging in the stacking lanes because that would be chaos. We're charging rank adjacent, and then the taxi can return and take its place in the queue. 16 bays allows us to support up to 480 vehicles, I think is our maths, using 1 hour charge slots at a time. This is just some of the layouts for our civil engineers, just to let you, get your civil juices flowing. So here's some of the divider lanes. Here's some of the island protections. We've got a bit of bypass. So yeah, very simple facility. For our electrical, our sparkies in the audience, here's what the reticulation looks like. And I think what we found, and this is an important point, is we really need to, in my learning, is get fluent in electrical engineering and get fluent in that side of the equation, because that's often where the constraint, the cost, and the I wouldn't call it ignorance, but just like, we're not trained in electrical power as civil or transport people. We got to brush up and understand what a kilowatt is and what a watt is and how and a kilovolt and how that puts together. That's going to be an important part of any project going forward. And then we are looking at a different roof design here, a Y shape that again, just I think is more architectural, speaks to this being a facility for the future, and being a beacon and an icon for electrification. What's interesting about this data, so Century City services, you could say, a big urban footprint where the distance between township to CBD is 35 kilometers, which is the urban form of a lot of South Africa. Stellenbosch is almost like a little town, a smaller footprint. And when you look at the distances, this is where we're heading towards having a 50 kilowatt battery, not a 70 kilowatt battery, so a smaller battery. Because the maximum trip distances here are the range is about 120 a day, with 64 or 20 to 60 being a particular trip. And the maximum distance between visits is 61 kilometers. So a much smaller battery pack can get us all the way. And that's another paradigm shift I'm seeing in our transport sector, where we often, all of our thinking, planning, scheduling, the way we thought about transports come with diesel in mind, right? We can quickly fill up, and we've got this big range, this 500-kilometer range, as we heard before. But you really need to look at activity now and really look at the data to optimize the most expensive and most risky part of the whole equation, which is the battery. The smaller the battery, the lighter the battery, the more efficient the battery, the more kilowatts or more kilometers per kilowatt you're going to get. And so over the course of an operation, you want that kilometers per kilowatt number to be as high, or the kilowatt per kilometer number to be as low as possible for you to get the value out of it. How much does all of this cost? Unfortunately, I've only got a slide in dollars. Apologies for not South Africanizing this slide. But it gives you a sense that we're talking, to do 10 to 30 charge bays, 80 vehicles, a facility. You're looking at a capital cost for vehicle and charger of 100 million rand, at least. So it is a significant investment, but we are encouraging NDOT, cities, IPTNs to build a hub, to learn, and to pilot with the industry as a partner, as the best way for us to be part of this global transition. Risk mitigation. So we mentioned load shedding. So we can schedule charges. We can look at some emergency battery storage on site, or we can just say drive to another hub where there isn't load shedding and charge there. So there are ways around. I think we all know we all just find our ways around load shedding as South Africans. Vehicle reliability and performance. That's an important point. This vehicle has to last. It is an important asset to families for savings, for earnings. It's really critical that the vehicle performance is there. I really think that we are beneficiaries of a step change of quality from Chinese manufacturers. And over the next 5 to 10 years, Chinese manufacturers, which used to have, let's say 5-10 years ago, a certain reputation, I think they're going to have a very different reputation. And we're already seeing that in the general automotive space. Driver reliability. Obviously, the drivers need to buy in. The drivers need to see the benefits of the technology. We are working right now on on understanding what the incentive schemes and what the motivations for drivers could be to adopt this. The driver in any transport system, as you'll know, whether it's truck or bus or taxi, drivers are linchpins for successful projects. And then vandalism, right? Anything copper, anything metal, anything of value on the streets of South Africa is fair game for scrap merchants. Well, this is where local partnership, localization, and really strong facilities management and careful investment makes a lot of sense. We definitely can't put charge hubs down where there isn't enough security, there isn't enough oversight, there isn't enough control. Things will get legs and find their way to the local scrap merchant. That's just the nature of the operating environment we're in. We believe that partnering with the private sector, partnering with the industry, and having a clear plan will avoid vandalism being a reality. In terms of benefits, Every vehicle that electrifies, we reduce CO2 by 13.7 tons. Yes, Justin, but what about the coal power stations? Look, I can only do the demand side. I'm trying to do the demand side. Let's get the demand side right, and then we can fix the supply side as well, right? We can't just say, well, we're not going to do this because there's still coal power. We got to do the demand side and the supply side, and we're doing the demand side by doing this. As important, I think, in the short term, is that there is an enormous reduction in NOx and SOx. That's harmful particulates that when a diesel vehicle is idling, those NOx and SOx are going somewhere. When a badly maintained old diesel vehicle is idling, even worse NOx and SOx are going into the lungs of women and children trying to get to work and school. So a reduction in NOx and SOx, that's something I feel very, very strongly about, is a very important need for the air quality around our public transport facilities. The health of the community, the reliability of service, and the spend that goes to energy will all improve and reduce. Increased profitability is a good thing for the South African economy because a healthy taxi sector is a healthy economy. There's local manufacturing opportunities and increased life expectancy because of all of these things. So, 5 challenges, and as I hopefully have done, if I've done my job today, you think we have a chance of succeeding at each one of these impossible challenges because we are South Africans and we always find a way. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you, Justin. We sincerely believe that you will overcome these challenges, and we will support you as far as we can and where we can. Clearly, the iKanva product is a product with lots of research behind it. It's not just a product. It's a lot of research and a lot of people working together to make it work, and we appreciate that. And the charge help is extremely important, taking care of the demand side. So thank you very much for sharing this with us. But let me not waste your time. Let's go over to our panel discussion so that people can engage with you guys. I've asked Ibrahim to moderate for us, and he's also going to do the introduction or setting the scene for us for the panel discussion. But let's have kindly all our speakers. Can you kindly unmute yourselves and switch on your cameras so that I can do the spotlight thing into the scene, yeah. So all the speakers, kindly unmute yourself and also switch on your camera. You have to switch on your camera as well, otherwise I can't spotlight you. Guys are still coming in here. I think what I'm going to do, Ibrahim, can I share your slide? And then while you're doing the setting the scene part, I will then still bring in the other spotlight. So I'm just bringing up.
Thanks. I'll switch off the video because it's on a phone connection. But basically, tell me when you managed to put up the slide. I'd like to thank all the speakers. We tried to keep it very practical as well, from the high level zooming down. But obviously, as you can see, it needs a much more in-depth workshop, depending on which angle is covered. But I think what's exciting is that between the national strategy, the international partners, the city of Cape Town pursuing an innovative approach, despite being bound by municipal public sector regulations and legislation, and also Go Metro's attempt to do the research, do the practical R&D to start South Africanizing this. So I think that the time has come. You can go to the next one, Harry, which is just one slide. The time has come to look at how we leverage momentum to get tangible solutions on the ground. So we've got more than we think we have. A lot of feasibility is done or can be done very quickly. There's templates, there's lessons, there's considerations from locally and elsewhere. To make the cost and business case, there's a lot of technical guidance already. I mean, this is not 2008 or where Tesla is trying to survive and prove to investors that laptop batteries can power a sports car, etc. So I think we have more than what we have, and the challenges become opportunities which we need to hit anyway. The idea of public transport mini hubs, is with the whole package of features is an opportunity. Just like the Tesla supercharger became an opportunity, in US, China, or Europe, to do other things, and then you start upgrading your public transport, experience, and especially where the pressure from the minister is on now is, in a sense, the minibus industry is kind of drifting back towards the late 90s. So a bit of overtrading, a bit of violence kicking in, contracting economy, the cost of new vehicle starts to become out of reach in terms of finance, deposits, interest rates, insurance. So what her pressure has been is, she calls it de-risking. How can we de-risk the minibus industry? And I just happen to be around long enough to remember the first time. But I think that the government is thinking of how to now do something that leverages their strengths, private sector, innovation, etc. But also, possibly, I think, and that's where Justin's coming in. Is there any possible case for a little bit of a landline to LTE type moment? We throw that out. So we through the green transport strategy, and I'm not sure if it came out, but it can come out in the panel. The Just Energy Transition office and institution, from what I gather, is being set up in the presidency, working with its partners, and ultimately it would be looking for projects, to channel the global funding or loans or grants, etc., via development finance institutions like BBSA, etc. So I think I think that's where projects such as what has been highlighted today start to move the needle. But obviously we need to turn the needle all the way around the dial. So I think that's the next step. And with that, what I'd want to do is, and Harry, you can then manage the speaking orders and stuff. But I want to throw out something to both the panel and the audience. Is obviously the next step is the feasibility, the piloting, the initial procurements, etc. The total cost of ownership, the business case. Somebody's asked about end of life battery recycling, etc. And a lot of even that's starting to solutions are emerging at scale in the US, etc., where a large chunk of the business case, as you get sufficient market scale of EVs, is to kind of almost have a circular economy where a large portion of the inputs, lithium, etc., can be over 90% recycled with the right processes. So even that, we can be innovative, knowing that's coming down the pipe. So what is the strategic step? And the one idea I had when I was at the Itaquani electrification workshop is, in that city, the kind of the bus industry and the minibus industry, for various reasons, seems to be, well, at the leadership level for now, are kind of trying to talk to each other and get, some joint, win-win options, instead of fighting over a shrinking cake, whether it's subsidy or routes or both. And there also was an awareness of cost of ownership, and that's where zero emissions, electric, etc. And they were even asking about retrofits, etc. So, is there the next step where we almost marry the two in a sense of what the work Justin's kind of doing with, and almost have a mini integrated project, but at certain strategic scale. So you've got both the minibus side, possibly the bus side. Hey, and why not stop there, Praza? In terms of the electrification. So there could be a kind of a tangible strategic scale project that captures the entire vision of the NLTA, utilizing zero emissions, but not just for the sake of being zero emissions, but for the sake of it provides a better experience to users, to drivers, and to operators, as well as to the city. So I'd throw that out. I think, Harry, you can keep the panel. Maybe each panelist can comment, and they can also comment on anything from the other panelists' inputs, and then open it up to the audience. And the audience is a panel as well, so they can ask and answer. And let's run for 15 minutes and see where we land. But obviously, this is not the last word on this, and possibly we're going to keep this on the front burner, in the months to come. And the challenges from where we sit is, especially on cities, to start looking for opportunities to possibly go zero emissions faster than they think they could, with the lessons and the examples and the know-how that's already there or thereabouts. Harry, you can start picking on speakers and let's get a good discussion going. I'll only come in if there's a need for any direction, but I doubt it. So thanks to the speakers, and look forward to some feedback from the panel, whether it's and the attendees, whether it's on the chat or whether it's asking and answering questions to each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Yes, as Ibrahim has said, the question is, what is the next strategic step? The next step to manage the two, so minibus, taxis, bus, and then also throw in the NLTA vision. So what's the next strategic step to manage all of this? So I'm going to look at the panel first, and then we'll give the audience opportunity also to share. So who of the panelists want to speak first? On my list, I've got Justin, Brian, Ulane, and Craig. Who wants to go first? Shall we call a name? Let's take Let's take Craig. Craig, you want to go first?
Thanks, Harry. Okay, if I look at the strategic step, and I mentioned earlier on, this is bespoke vehicles that we're referring to, especially in the bus industry. For me, a strategic step would be to standardize, to make sure that everything is standardized as a workable solution forward, because currently now we have, especially in the municipal environment, we have different cities operating slightly differently. And for me, it is a collaboration between the different, not only C40 cities, but the different cities that are in the BRT space. And I can only speak from the perspective of bus and the IPTN, in terms of we all have got the same sort of vision. And for me, that is clear. Secondly, on a strategic level, with regards to regulations, I think regulations is critical to unpack what the challenges are currently, especially from not only municipal, but in terms of the regulations regarding imports, the regulations regarding charges, the excess charges, those type of things that is really adding to the actual cost of us wanting to have a vision and a plan and to able to enforce that plan within the next 20 to 25 years. It's quite difficult to do it in with the regulations currently where they are at. There's obviously a negative to what I'm saying as well in terms of manufacturers, but just in terms of getting the process going and getting it started, the capital sort of expenditures and the capital outlay is fairly onerous. And it is something that I believe from a strategic level, it needs to be considered. And that's my take on probably looking ahead. Thanks, Harry.
Thanks, Craig. Appreciate that one. Polani, you want to comment?
Okay, thanks, Harry. Quite a complex question that one needs to unbundle to that point. But for my side, I think that strategic step that we can do, or the next one, it can be to ensure that there's policy certainty and policy alignment when it comes to there's issues, and also we need to ensure that there are collaborations with private and public partnerships, there are public-private partnerships to ensure that there's an implementation when it comes to the issues of green transport. I will take it into that space of green transport, and maybe the last one. Okay, I think I've said it: the policy certainty and collaboration, because if our partners are not certain, or if the direction it's not certain on what direction do we want as a country, then it becomes difficult to have to attract the market. So those are the strategic steps that we need to look at to ensure that we attract the market. But then to attract the market, then we need to have policy certainty and direction, and also collaborations. Thanks.
Thank you, Polani. Let's go to Pran, and then I'll go to Justin.
Okay, so I think Ibrahim's question is really interesting. It's intersection between informal transport, formal public transport, and electrification. I think we should look to what Kenya is doing. I think it's quite remarkable how the matatu industry there has really transformed over the years. And I think the key milestone that led to that transformation was the regulations that forced the matatu associations to form legal cooperatives. So I know there have been a number of projects in South Africa where there've been attempts to set up taxi operating companies, but these are largely voluntary, sort of project-based initiatives. But the sort of legal structure that Kenya implemented forced all associations to set up these companies, and then that was the starting point for formalization. And I think that built a really strong framework, which has now led to entrepreneurs like Basigo creating this e-bus leasing model. And so now you're seeing very large scale uptake of matatu cooperatives in Nairobi, leasing electric buses on their own without government intervention, support, or any push. And I think that is strategically important. I know that Nairobi is planning their own BRT of their own. So from an infrastructure perspective, they've done the designs, they've started construction. Now they're starting to think through how will they operate this BRT. And I think they're at the stage where they're going to start looking at how the Matatu cooperatives that have been set up can be contracted to become contracted to become operating companies for that BRT. So you can see there's a lot of similarities between the Kenyan situation and what's happening in South Africa as well. And I think that SACU regulation is something that might be missing. But yeah, I think what would happen is if our minibus taxi associations were forced to set up companies, cooperatives, corporatize, it will create space for service providers like FlexiV want to lease and have these leasing models. And then there's a bit of PTOG, the public transport operations grant reform that might need to be looked at. So how do you fund taxi operating companies? So how do you contract them to provide the services, either to operate trunk routes or feeder and distribution services for PRT? But yeah, that's what I see.
Thank you very much, Brian. Valuable inputs there. Thank you so much. Let's go to Justin.
Yeah, so I think everyone will know I'm a little bit of a contrarian, I guess. So I think over the last decade, looking at the IPTN program and being retrospective and understanding, I think we've learned the limitations that central planning has and the shortcomings that central planning has. And I would caution against, like Priyan used the word force or must, or I'd caution against us trying to use the levers that we do have available to us in policy setting, grant making, funding, and regulation to force anything. Because we're talking about an industry here that doesn't like to be forced or told what to do, but definitely wants to participate and have a seat at the table. So I think more in terms of incentives and having spent some time traveling around, one of the most centrally planned economies in the world, which is China, the competition and the incentives to get things done because there is a competitive environment is very healthy. And so I would challenge our paradigm here to use central planning and the central unitary state that we have in South Africa and the strong ability to regulate, implement, and provide policy direction. Use that to our advantage. But I would love to see more of a enabling platform and environment for PPPs to thrive. For example, for a city to say, all right, we've got 10 major PTIs. We have 2,000 square meters at each PTI that's next to it. That's in a field or in an abandoned state or whatever the case is. And we're going to have a call for a private concession that must have local economic participation, must have a composite set of stakeholders to tell us how will they provide electrification hubs that has one door for our public bus service, and you must provide certain charge for our My Cities to come in on one side and get charge. At the same time, must have facilities for the private bus or the coach, and coach is a whole world that is an invisible electrification category, and then an electric minibus hub. It's a call to market. There's 10 sites, and it's a concession for the next 10 years. We've done it successfully with Gautrain. We've done it successfully with toll roads. We are a successful concessioning infrastructure state. And so I think that we mustn't necessarily think of government or kind of the paradigm of the IPTNs where it was very much turnkey. I think turnkey gets us nowhere. Turnkey gets us mega projects that don't actually put wheels on the ground effectively. And rather, let's look at enabling PPPs and concessions that make sense. So for another example, if a port goes, you know what, all the stuff inside of this port can be electrified because it never leaves the port. The port is a controlled environment. We're going to give a concession out to someone who wants to come and build a charge hub in the port, as well as then electrify all these vehicles on a lease. And so if you start putting these different silos together, you start seeing more creative solutions than what our current paradigm is. So, I think I just want to, highlight the good that we have, the frameworks that we have in place, and the entrepreneurial nature of South Africans needs to be unlocked with this new paradigm that's coming. So I'm very excited. I think we're going to have the next decade have a lot of fun transforming South Africa's transport and energy mix. Can't wait.
Thank you, entrepreneur Justin. Ladies and gents, that's not good from the panel. So in other words, Craig said to us, what about standardization and collaboration, which is important, and we need to unpack the regulations. Fulani said to us that policy alignment is important, collaboration between public and private sector for the implementation of green transport. Brian talked about what's Kenya doing, and looking at legal cooperatives, legal structures, and get associations to join. Looking at the e-bus leasing model, for example, operating companies, contracting models, and then grant reforms to fund the trunk routes, etc. And there was different disciplines within the industry. And Justin's talking about do not over-regulate. Let's look not too much at central planning, but let the entrepreneurs come to the fore and maybe look at PPTs and concessioning and throw it open, let the industry come and tell us what they think should happen and collaborate in a certain direction. Hopefully I've summarized it sort of correctly. So let's give the audience, online audience, opportunity. Obviously the guys on YouTube, you're welcome to text a question or a comment, but also the people on Zoom. So is there anybody that would like to say something? You can raise your hand. Let me see here. Anybody? I see Louise Nodia. Louise, you're welcome to talk to us, please.
Thank you, Harry. So I'm a member of the Presidential Climate Commission. I'm a commissioner on that body. And my day job is for WWF South Africa. And the issue I want to raise, it's not necessarily a question, but I think that this shift to electric vehicles is an opportunity to lower the cost to the passengers. I understand there's a high upfront sticker price. One is hoping that with more and more local manufacture, that comes down, and that anyway, the costs of these technologies come down, and that therefore there's a payback period, and public transport already struggles to break even. Not that it should need to break even. I mean, it's a public service that all governments subsidize. But, there is a saving that could be passed on to passengers. And I would really like us to be building that into our approaches, because a huge challenge in this country is, the poverty of people and people being able to get around to, access job opportunities and education opportunities and so on. So let's apply our mind to that piece as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Appreciate it. All right. Anybody else from the audience who would like to say something? You're welcome to raise your hand. Right here, we've got. Try and see. Gordon, you're welcome to talk to us.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. I work for a consultancy called C Sustainability in the sustainable advocacy space and do a lot of work in the sustainable transport sector. I think I really must compliment DOT on the presentation and where the strategies are going. I would contend that what we need to do is shift from green transport, which is a limiting way of describing sustainable transport, to sustainable transport, because, and I put in a comment in the chat box, green transport is an economic approach. Whereas what we really need to do, and we need to speak to the socio-ecological approaches, and Louise has touched on that, to the much broader sustainable mobility. And I think in order to make, we keep on speaking about spatial transformation in this country, and we're not getting it right. And transport actually enables spatial dislocation, because what we do is we come in and we provide transport to dislocated communities. And really what we need to be doing is putting our hands up and saying, no more. We're not going to be doing that anymore. You cannot develop on the peripheries anymore. And we need to be densifying and mixed use developing. Now, we have lots of policies and strategies that speak to that. But the real danger is that we as transport planners solve a superficial problem by providing the means to move, rather than addressing the underlying issues, which are so critical. And unless we do that, and we do that in an integrated way, we're still going to be having this conversation in 5-10 years' time. If we don't start now, we've locked ourselves into not being able to do it further down the line. So we really have to do that. And everything that I've heard today speaks to the need to address the spatial dislocation that we've got in this country. And everything that came out in this conversation today will be further enabled and will actually really support what Louise was saying, because we reduce the cost of accessing opportunity by doing that. And ultimately, two places benefit. Government benefits in terms of the reduced need for subsidies, and the private individual benefits from affordable access to opportunity, however that looks. Thanks.
Thank you, Gordon. Appreciate it. So let's move back to our panel and take Louise's question or comment that we need to reduce costs for the passengers. Cost of technology should come down. Poverty is a problem in our country. So maybe one of the panelists would like to comment on that.
I think I'll maybe comment just on how we bring the cost of the vehicle down, or the vehicles. So this is not just necessarily minibuses, but buses, coaches, trucks, cars. So right now, we know where most very, very good quality electric vehicles are made. It's in China. And the ability to import with a roll-on, roll-off to our ports of Durban or Gqeberha means that we can have these vehicles rolling in their thousands. In fact, we've seen these vehicles rolling in their thousands on the ICE side. So when you import a vehicle, there's a 42% duty. 25% is for the fact that it's a car not made in South Africa or finished in South Africa. And an additional 18% or whatever's left is the ad valorem tax, because it's viewed as a luxury good. So even if you're importing an electric bus for the masses, it's a luxury good that attracts an ad valorem tax. So the way to reduce the duty is to have localization and to have local content and to have elements of your production in South Africa. That's semi-knockdown, complete knockdown. So any manufacturer will need to set up a facility here and employ South Africans and add value to the vehicle locally. The places you can do that are the automotive clusters in Tshwane, in East London, or in Port Elizabeth or Durban. Those is pretty much where the automotive sector is already. And we can expect to see a lot of manufacturers setting up facilities to take advantage of the skills we have and the cluster we have. It is a bit of a race right now. So we do need to attract the automotive sector to set up shop in the next 5 years. While there is tariff uncertainty, duty uncertainty, the biggest maker of new energy vehicles is very desperate for other markets. And so the C in BRICS would very much like to set up factories in the S in BRICS. And I think we're in a place where we need to take advantage of that as a country. So in terms of the vehicle, the only way we bring the vehicle cost down is optimize its range, have as little battery as possible that makes sense for it to be serviceable, and then have as much local content as possible. And then the other very, very good thing we have is we have lots and lots and lots of pension funds, and we have high liquidity in the private sector, which means that if we need to offer asset finance, we can lean on the likes of Sanlam, Old Mutual, Momentum, Allan Gray, Coronation, we have deep pockets of liquidity that like asset-backed financing. And so that's another advantage South Africa has, in that we could come up with innovative financing packages to bring the financing costs down, thanks to the pools of capital that we do have.
Thank you, Justin. Brian, perhaps any international experience in this regard?
Look, I think realistically, it's unlikely that the transition to EVs is gonna lower fare prices. I think the savings that operators make, I mean, in terms of fuel savings when they transition to EVs, they're gonna use that as a sort of EV incentive to transition. I think the focus should be on more articulating that public transport should be a subsidized service. So increased fare prices despite an EV transition is not a function of passing that saving on, but is the service adequately subsidized? And I think maybe also like framing, because like, why are we not considering public transport as a utility in the same way that water, electricity, waste collection is? It's a municipal service, right? So I think, yeah, but maybe Craig has some, from a city perspective, insights
Yeah.
there.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, that's also linking to what Gordon has said about, having a vision or a focus of sustainable mobility or sustainable transport rather than green transport, to see the bigger picture. Don't know, please remember, panelists, that I'm going to ask closing comments from each one of you just now. But Pulani, if you look from a government perspective, there's a vision of a bigger picture in a sustainable transport. Perhaps you can comment on that.
Thanks, Harry. I think that's one of the initiatives that we also, or talks that we've been thinking of, that we should not only focus on green transport, but we should focus on sustainable transport or sustainable mobility. And I do agree with Gordon and appreciate his comment on this one, and it's something that we are also looking at. And then maybe again, in terms of moving the cost, it's I think it's been clear with us that we need modal shift. We need to move from private vehicles to public transport, or also from road to rail, and those are some of the things that we are advocating for as the department. As much as we want to move from fossil fuels in terms of ICE to EVs, but the main objective or vision is to move from private to public. Thank you.
Thank you, Pulani. Guys, we need to be brief here because we're running out of time. I see Daniel. Daniel, you're welcome to ask your question. Seems to me Daniel's got a problem there.
Okay, can you hear me, Harry?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay, no, thank you, Harry, and thank you all the presenters. I think just a comment. I worked for the city before, and I'm now doing a lot of safety stuff and advocate of safety as an activist. And there's so much of information just referring to Ibrahim Sidad, and I see the city Tigweni and this one. I think what should happen now, coming from a safety perspective, and we've been using taxis and buses, but I think now this information has to go into communities and causing an awareness, because an electric bus may when appear to a terminal, or even the movement of those buses, it's very, very silent. I was in Cape Town City. I used one of those buses by Golden Arrow. It's a very good ride, very safe. But I think creating that awareness, I think we need to take it out of from the operator and from the institution like the city itself. Let people know that the benefit, because the users now, I don't see the users getting involved. So that information in terms of your workshop and your facilitation, the users need to know the benefit, because let them create the appetite to say, yes, we need that. And also looking at the structure of the minibus taxi, I know it's safe. Also the buses, the components, because in terms of your accident, your rear end, your side swap, I think all that probably needs to get some kind of information out there. Yeah, so I think let me stop there, Harry. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it. Let's move to Willem Low as our last person asking a question. Willem Low.
Thank you, Harry, and thank you to the panel for the interesting presentations. I want to just come in from a slightly different angle here. I'm a little bit worried. I'm very encouraged by the presentation in terms of transportation and electrification of public transport. It's definitely the way to go. But I am a little bit worried in terms of a lack of what I perceive, at least in this forum, in terms of the engagement with stakeholders such as the Department of Energy and Electricity. It's very good and well to speak about electrification of public transport, but without the underlying electrical infrastructure, there won't be any or very limited electrification. There is, of course, as part of the Department of Energy and Electricity, also decarbonization drive of the electrical infrastructure, electricity sector. And that also introduces variability in terms of renewable energy. So I think from that perspective, it is important to look at the use profile and the electricity use profile during the day in terms of charging during off-peak periods, which I think the public transport sector is very well suited to. But then just also in terms of capacity, if one would just do just using the hub that Justin referred to, at least as an example of 10 of those stations, if one of them would be presumably two charging points per station. So if one would then say it's 100 kilowatt per one of those stations, one can make a very rough sum for the PTIs within the Cape Town context that does look in the order of about 50 to 60 MVA. Now, that is the equivalent of a couple of Wingfield substations. If you think of the Cape Town context again, Wingfield is a 20 MVA substation. If you think of Klapmuts outside Stellenbosch, it's bigger. It's a 40 MVA substation. So that's the kind of level we're talking of in terms of electrical capacity. So it certainly must form part of the planning, and I think it's important that engagement with the electricity sector is happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Willem. Really appreciate it.
Harry, if I may, so MVA, KVA, MW, like us transport geeks need to learn a lot more about power than we know.
Thank you, Justin. Ladies and gents, let's go to closing remarks from our panelists. And I'm going to work from the top of my list here. First Justin, and then Brian, and then Pulani, and then Craig. So Justin, some closing remarks from you, please.
No, thanks. So I think we have always had leadership in crises in South Africa. We've always had an action orientation, and we've always made a plan. And I think that the future is unknown. But we definitely have an understanding of what hasn't worked in the past for us, whether it's institutional shortcomings, capacity shortcomings, or just the way that our cities and structures are formed. And so I really hope that as an industry, we take those learnings of the last decade, or I mean, Abraham was referring to the early 90s. I think history sometimes is a circle, not a line. And so I think we really have to apply the learnings of the last 20, 30 years to this opportunity. The convergence of technology, power, energy, mobility, and now AI is a fantastic opportunity for those ready to surf the wave, but it is going to take a multidisciplinary approach and for us to kind of reach across the sector silos that have been constructed in the last 30 years for us to solve this.
Thank you so much, Justin. Let's have closing remarks from Brian. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, I think just from C40's city side, thanks everyone for the opportunity to speak and present. It was great to interact with all of you. I do take your point about the energy aspect, and I think maybe a follow-up webinar linked to the energy and grid considerations is probably something that we can put together.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brian. Ulani, closing remarks.
Okay, thank you, Harry. Maybe just to indicate that with our Transport Just Transition Plan, we did extensive stakeholder consultation, and Eskom was one of the stakeholders that we did consult with. And in closing, I would like to say thank you very much to everyone. And then as we know, transport is the heartbeat of South Africa's economy. And then I would like to say, let's move sustainably. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ulani. Appreciate your participation. Let's go to Craig.
Thank you all. I think I just would like to note, and just based on what the last comment was from the rest of the people on the call, I think what's important and encouraging for us from the City of Cape Town point of view, we've got a steering committee that not only deals with the public transport, but deals with our corporate fleets, and in terms of how do we move those fleet types, and how do we get charges all over within our region, just to ensure that as we roll out, we're not only focused in one on one narrow focus of public transport, but also in terms of the rest of the city's vehicles and our portable charges. So that is, for me, is very exciting. It's a very broad view, and it is led at the highest levels. And with those sort of inputs, and that's encouragement in terms of the seriousness of how we envision the future and how important it is for us to transition, but transition in a very sustainable way in order to ensure that we can still meet our objectives within our funding requirements. So thank you. That's all from me. Thanks a lot for the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Let's give this panel a big hand, ladies and gents, for excellent presentations and participation. We've got Ibrahim, our host and the compiler of this panel. Ibrahim, please close the session for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. Thanks to everyone who participated. I think the discussion just started, but it's been valuable. I think the point about passing on the savings to users. So in a sense, and the bigger vision of achieving sustainable transport goals. And if you think about it, then the challenge comes back to the implementers to kind of let's get strategic implementation in action. How long does it take? Is it 24 months? Is it longer? Is it shorter? Why if it's longer? And I think tying in, I think Louise mentioned she's on the presidential group looking at setting up the energy transition. So if opportunities are going to arise, I think some of the legwork that's been done could all come together under the banner of zero emissions or electrification as just simply a tool. So it would be, well, if there is densification and mixed use and infilling and leads to lower distances, lower costs, it makes charging type solutions even more viable and more flexible. And I think that the trick is to combine users, operators, and the authorities, but in a very practical, strategic way. I think we note the point, I think Justin's point out, I think often, sometimes the authorities just get out of the way. But I guess the difference, because we don't have that scale, how do we create scale to kind of almost let this start driving itself purely on incentives. So it's almost just to, and again, the point I think Dan mentioned about creating awareness with users especially. So a lot of work to do, but it's all probably part of the work that should be done anyway. So it probably just focuses the implementers to redouble the efforts with all the challenges to create something that starts to move the needle. And and what would that be? And I mean, maybe there's elements of from where Justin is showing the kind of charge hubs that are multi-purpose, possibly can be done quite quickly, aligned to existing upgrading of ranking type infrastructure anyway. There's the need for lower costs in, say, trunk corridors, IPTN type things, vehicles, and lower fares in general, but lower costs, and saving on fuel bills, operating costs, maintenance, imports in terms of importing refined fuel, etc. And then also, I think from the points of view of local, there's obviously greenhouse gas emissions, but there's also local emissions. And as someone who cycles or runs or just walks around the street, I mean, the diesel particulates are, if you're aware of it, are bad enough, because now you mentally get this vision of the lung cancer while you're walking outdoors. But I've begun to notice, and it probably then expands. So the strategic opportunity expands beyond public transport to obviously just livable public space, which comes back to sustainable spaces, because there is a bit of a race to the bottom now. I mean, I think the crisis, every generation of overtrading and undercapitalizing, and in terms of operations, I'm beginning to see that now a little bit with the low end kind of construction market as well. They're using a lot of old, probably 20, 25-year-old Kias, Hyundai type things that are, if I happen to be driving behind one of those or walking behind, with an open window or just breathing in, I kind of change my route if I can, because I can feel the headache going immediately. Because so obviously I think what's happening is they're bypassing whatever Euro 2 filters they even had, and you're getting pure unadulterated 70s diesel particulates straight into your lungs. So local emissions are quite important as well. If I ran a marathon once on March 1st, the Elands Valley Marathon. That's from it used to be called Watervalboven to just outside Mbombela, on the N4, and they closed the N4, sponsored by the concessionaire. But I had to drive a bit late on Friday, so driving through former Witbank, Middelburg, at 5-6 p.m. on a Friday night. Oof, it's like you can just see you're driving straight through a soup of life-shortening pollution. It's not like you have to imagine this thing, or you kind of if the wind changes and winter inversion. So local emissions and health, and but obviously everyone knows that. So it might be that somebody else needs to push the needle, and I think what I would say is move as fast as the fastest, most energetic players who are doing the research, who are doing the practical R&D, who are trying to bring stuff in, change the market dynamics. And I think as authorities and as funders and as, say, governmental institutions, we need to learn a bit of humility, stay out of the way a bit, very targeted policies that talk to practical needs, but then, let the incentives run it. So it becomes a very bottom-up driven thing, where, if you're an operator who innovates and users prefer using your vehicle now, and also your vehicle is more cost effective because it's lower maintenance and fuel bill. That should start to. I think the role of and no more for now. And like, let's put our egos aside. So I think, I'd like to call on everyone to keep thinking advanced strategic solution and how to use the current opportunities, and then put pressure at the right level, whether if it's your local metro city. So I think that's partly why Cape Town is here, although it can always backfire politically, because it's to kind of put pressure on the others as well, because there are some large diesel purchases coming up, in some of the Gauteng cities, especially Joburg. Phase 1C buses, there's Phase 1A buses that have been tendered. And it looks like there's already a missed opportunity there, 150 if you combine those. And they may be only going to get ready for Phase 1B in 2.5 years' time. And then every diesel bus, whether it's Euro 4, 5, 6, ultimately ends up, imagine that thing running for 20 years plus, right? In whichever form it does run. So we are kind of getting into, depends on our ages, but our grandchildren are going to be dealing with that as well. So I think it's almost like a strategic package that electrification or any other zero emissions technology that's doable. It kind of reinforces the motivation to get sustainable transport done, because it has been kind of petering out a bit and lagging, etc. I think maybe we look forward to, and via you, Harry, anyone's welcome to send out any left field or any ideas that any of this might have provoked, whilst we banking on people to emulate Cape Town and start doing some of the hard legwork and get procurement and implementation going. And then let's always think minibus and bus, if not rail as well, but minibus and bus, so it doesn't. And I think Priyan's points are valuable. I mean, somebody needs to look into more bringing those examples of self-incentivizing, performance electrification by even the corporatizing informal sector in Kenya. I think thanks a lot, Harry, and I've found it useful, and I hope people at least keep thinking, if nothing else. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a blessed day further, and see you next time. Take care.